Hey, my fantastic time-traveling crew. It's your buddy Chronos, back with another mind-blowing episode of What If? On our awesome channel. Can you believe it? We're diving into part 13 of our electrifying series. What if Deku became Saitama? And let me tell you, this one's going to knock your socks off. So grab your favorite snack, get ready for an adventure, and let's unravel this mind-bending universe together. Chapter 32. After every summer, life and the battle must go on. Sakai High School. Izuku let out a loud yawn, causing several of his classmates and teacher to look at him. Izuku was slightly embarrassed as he didn't mean to be so loud. Mr. Yamamoto looked at him. "Am I boring you, Midoriya?" the teacher asked with a mix of joke and seriousness. Another yawn escaped him against his will. Izuku brought a hand to his mouth and allowed it to pass. "Sorry, Mr. Yamamoto, I had a long night and didn't get much sleep." "Screwing up your sleep schedule isn't going to help you grow, young man," he said playfully. "I'll try to remember that, sir." The teacher continued his lesson. Taku shot a knowing glance at Izuku, who was barely paying attention to what was being taught. He was too focused on everything that happened last night. There were also some other developments that were racking his brain. He's working on 2 hours of sleep. He got home around 4:30. He stopped a handful of crimes across the Chubu region that kept him out. He never picked up Tachibana's trail, but the woman she broke out stayed on his mind. All for One said she used to be a hero. The warden of Tartarus said she was a special prisoner but wouldn't say more than that. His body language at that time said he was worried about the fact she escaped, and also he still couldn't place her face. It ate at him how familiar she looked. When he got home, he went to his room and tore through his hero almanacs. He basically had every one made in the past decade. It took him a while, but he finally found her, and when he did, it was shocking. She was Lady Nagant. He mentally slapped himself for not recognizing her right away. But she used to have longer hair styled in a ponytail. That may be why he didn't recognize her right away. She's been out of the scene for about 3 years now, but she was once touted as the best long-range fighter amongst the heroes. Her quirk, rifle, was an emitter type that turned her right arm into a sniper rifle, allowing her to fire various fast and powerful bullets made of her hair. There weren't many videos of her fights, but she was still a popular, effective, and well-known hero. But that only raised more questions. If a pro hero, especially one like her, was sent to Tartarus of all places, the whole world should have known about it. From the public's perspective, she just disappeared. What could she have done that her arrest was swept under the rug? Better yet, why would Tachibana go so far to get her out? How did she know she was even there? Where were they now, and what were they planning? These thoughts were interrupted when the bell rang, signaling the end of the second period. Everyone started packing up to leave. "All right, we'll pick back up after lunch," the bearded teacher said before leaving the classroom. Kiyuki groaned. "Thank God that's over. I freaking hate trigonometry," she complained as she put her books in her bag. "Same here, but it's crap we have to muddle through," Saki added. Taku smiled slyly at the girls. "Sucks to be you too. I learned the whole course in a few minutes." "Did I say I hated this math, or ask for your lip?" Saki shot back with a glare. "You didn't have to ask for my lip, but if you did, you could have them as much as you wanted." Saki blushed at the implications. What's that supposed to mean?" "Whatever you want it to mean. Sometimes you want to talk to me, listen to me, or if you want to, even kiss me." She shot her a charming smile as he said this. Saki's cheeks were now red as she swallowed her retort. "Come on, Ki-chan!" she exclaimed as she got up and dragged the black-haired girl to the natatorium. Taku chuckled. "You play too much, Taku," Izuku commented. "Come on, you gotta admit Okoto is really cute when she's being teased," he replied confidently. "I'm not denying that. But you like her, and she likes you, so why not just ask her out already?" "Really, Aizu? You know she's got serious tsundere tendencies. I can't be as direct as normal here," Still, this is one of the funnest chases I've ever had. I really like her. Well, you do, Taku, Izuku said before getting up and heading to the next period. Hey, did you guys hear that there was a break-in at Tartarus prison last night? Isamu Mugenshi asked the group he was in. He was a child genius of 10 years old with brown hair and large auburn eyes. He was one of the top students in Class S, and he was by far the most impressive student intellectually. Yeah, I heard about that. Thankfully no one escaped, a boy added. They say the reason for that was one showing up, the youngest boy added. Thank God for that, Krius stated. Mugenshi looked at the greenette. Hey Midoriya, are you good over there? You look a little out of it. I'm fine, I just have a lot on my mind. The kid took in his words. All right then. He was clearly a little concerned, but he quickly perked back up. All right. Let's go swimming, people. The group left the classroom. Jinji Aoi was playfully flirting with Karina Irika, a cute, short, petite girl with blue eyes, hair mirroring the 3 fins of a dolphin and a dolphin tail. She absolutely loved water, and with swimming being what they'd be doing for P.E for the next week truly excited her. Izuku and Taku were the only ones left in the classroom. Taku gave him a silent look, and the greenette got up to head to his next period. He wasn't tired, but his thoughts wouldn't leave him. They left the classroom and headed to P. You're carrying a lot right now. Wanna tell me about it? Taku asked warmly. Izuku sighed. It's just getting crazy, Taku, I'll tell you later. By the way, did you ever find who broke your encryption? Didn't take me long actually. It was done from a laptop. I was able to hack into it and find it belongs to a Minami Aiba. Whoever she is, she's actually a pretty damn good hacker, as she deflected me like 4 times. I'm gonna need a hero to pay her a visit. Noted. Gentle Criminal and his sidekick were there last night. She may be the one who broke into the system. Well, we're gonna need to look into why they got involved with that lot in the first place. From my understanding, he's just fighting for attention. Izuku took a breath. It's just that I feel wrapped in a huge mystery. Nothing is as I originally thought, and what I'm learning just opens more mysteries. Like what? Only one prisoner escaped last night, and it was a former hero. What? Taku was clearly confused by this. Who? Lady Nagant, apparently. Don't know who that is. She's a long-range combatant that's a master sniper. She hasn't done any hero work in like 3 years, but I had no idea she was in prison. So the media's covering that up. Figures. Yeah, I mean I get it. If a villain breaks out of Tartarus, that would make people panic because it's supposed to be inescapable. Speaking of escape, I was listening to your talk. You don't think All for One can leave whenever he wants, right? Not without outside help. Izuku gripped his chin. His foresight is really damn annoying. He said once he loves coming up with plans with several routes to achieve a goal, and I think this is no different. I can keep an eye on him, you know, Taku said reassuringly. I know. It's just that he had a lot of sound logic, and I would hate it if he turned out to be right. Naturally. Sakai High Natatorium. The lanes were full and the pool was lively. Everyone was in their black school swimsuits. They would be doing aquatics for the next week, and on their first day back they would just be swimming as many laps as they could. There were 8 lanes with most of the students filling them. Irika asked for the 8th lane by herself to go for the school record of most laps in 10 minutes. Most Class S students were bookworms who didn't spend that much time playing or exercising, but in the midst of everyone doing their laps there were 4 that stood out among the class. Karina Iruku, Saki Okoto, Kiyuki Tabihara and Izuku Midoriya were blitzing up and down their respective lanes like fish, overlapping their classmates many times over. With most of the kids tired and with 15 minutes left in the class, the teacher left the class to play around in the final minutes. Some were swimming while others were sitting outside the pool and talking to each other. Izuku was sitting on the edge of the pool with his feet in the water. He watched Irika continue to swim laps, but he was still very much in his thoughts. He spotted Mugenshi in the pool sitting in a tube. "Hey Isamu, where'd the tube come from?" The young boy spun in the water. "It's an invention I had in my pocket." His answer was casual. For a kid, he was a damn good inventor, not on Taku's level, but in time could become a well-renowned scientist. The two had actually bonded over their respective inventions, with the kid wanting to become Taku's student only for the Greynet to turn him down. "Midoriya?" A feminine voice from his right called to Izuku. Turning to see who it was, he saw Yuko Kinoshita eyeing him. She was a good-looking brown-haired girl of average height, deep green eyes and a slim build. Her default expression was serious, but he knew she had a softer side. She was a stellar, well-rounded student befitting Class S. Her arms were crossed as she looked at him. "Hey, what's up, Kinoshita? You've been looking pretty solemn since this morning, are you okay?" she asked with a slight blush, even though her face was serious. He shot her a charming smile. "I didn't know you cared. But I'm fine. I've just got a lot on my mind is all." "Well, your yawning in class earlier weirded me out. You came over here just to tell me that?" Izuku shot back with a raised brow. Her expression deepened. "I just came to tell you to shape up. You're a Class S student, so remember what you represent as part of this institution." Izuku looked at her nonchalantly. "I'll try to remember that." "Good, because this semester I'm gunning for the top." "Well, you fell behind Shuko, who fell behind Taku, who fell behind Inomata, who fell behind Asuno, who fell behind to me, and I couldn't get past Mugenshi, so good luck." The moment these words left his lips, he was struck in the back. Yuko had kicked him into the pool. Priest, who was sitting on a bench with Kiyuki, Saki and Taku, had seen that and merely shook his head. "That's unbecoming of a woman, Kinoshita," he said to the skulking brunette, who merely shot him a glare. Izuku allowed himself to sink into the pool, holding his breath and allowing himself to just let the water have him. Raising his eyes, he saw Irika still swimming. He felt the water shift, and turning to his left, he was met with a big pair of blue eyes. He smiled as Irika took his hand and lifted him out of the water, as if he were drowning. They got above the water, and she rested him on the edge. Izuku strung an arm on the side, playing along. He exhaled deeply. "You saved me. Dolphins truly are our friends," he said dramatically. "It's good to know that another person knows that," the dolphin girl said in a chipper tone. "Yo, Karina! How many laughs have you gotten today anyway?" "I'm sitting at about 100 right now." She smiled confidently. "I've still got a lot more in me. You wanna race, Kiyuki?" "Nah. I'm already dry. I don't want to get wet again," she replied blandly. Saki, who was sitting to her left on the bench, was surprised at this. "Wow! Kichan turning down a challenge? Someone pinch me, I'm dreaming." Her eyes widened as she silently yipped from the sudden pinch to her left nipple. The next instant her fist connected with Taku's right jaw. Her punch sent him spinning and landing in the middle of the pool. "I didn't mean you could pinch me there," she angrily exclaimed, getting the attention of her classmates. Most of them just sweat dropped, fully understanding what happened even if they didn't see it. Izuku and Irika were eyeing the spot from where Taku hit the water. The dolphin girl sighed as she eyed the ripples. "Think Okoto finally killed him?" "I hope not," Izuku answered, not really concerned. After third period, it was time for lunch. Sakai's breakfast and lunch menu consisted of a variety of gourmet dishes. Izuku sat at a table with Saki, Kiyuki, Taku, Irika, and Kriest. They were at their usual table and were having good back and forths with each other. As the group talked and ate, almost everyone outside of Class S was stealing glances at their table. More specifically, they were looking at Kiyuki and Saki. They were kind of famous at the moment given their involvement in the alien attack, and many people who saw them fight wanted to see them. Saki could sense every eye on them, and it annoyed her. She sighed. "These bugs are annoying." "Well, what do you expect, Okoto? Not many people can say they fought an alien," Izuku said slyly. Saki just gave him a blank, annoyed look, unable to call him out because his identity was a secret. I still can't believe you two were involved in that, Irika said chipperly. Kiyuki swallowed her curry. It's not like we planned for that. Thank God one stopped the initial bombing or the whole city may have been taken out. That whole situation had serious end-of-the-world type vibes. Saki nodded. Right. We got to use our training, plus this was a set of special circumstances. I'm just glad we didn't get expelled. Thank whatever god you subscribe to for that, Taku joked. Izuku, who was sitting across from Kiyuki, looked past her to see Aoi approaching their table. He had 3 yakisoba buns and a carbonated water bottle on the tray in his left hand and a school newspaper. Hey man, he said to his excited friend who stopped in front of the table. Aoi was known for his sly, cool, jokey, perverse personality. The smile on his face was telling as he eyed his friends, specifically Kiyuki and Saki. That looks as you know something I want to know about, Taku said with a cool smile. Their personalities were very similar, especially in their regards to the opposite sex. They were truly kindred spirits. He raised the newspaper. You guys gotta freaking read this, he said with a bright smile though chuckles. He put the paper on the table and the title was jarring. Sakai's Battling, Busted Beauties. What the hell is this? Saki exclaimed, snatching the paper, angry after reading the title. She started reading the article, her anger building. It's the hottest topic right now, Aoi answered slyly. With heroes massacred by the alien that descended upon Mizurufu, Sakai High first years Saki Okoto and Kiiki Tabihara stepped up to the plate, becoming the reluctant heroes needed to turn the tide in favor of humanity. Who wrote this? Saki exclaimed, demanding an answer. Taku leaned over to her, reading the paper. Kagami Kuzukabe, apparently. Aoi smiled. 1,000 yen says she's had this story lined up since it happened in real time. Kiyuki looked at the article. Says here that Naijima edited this. That explains the title. Haruo Naijima was a second year and the head of the newspaper club. He was well known for his sly and deceptive approach to journalism. He was someone definitely in the know about almost everything going on around school and the people in it. And Kagami wasn't too different, but she had more integrity than he did, plus she was cute, so she got a pass. She was so passionate about journalism and getting her scoop. She was skilled at espionage, she always kept her camera on her, and was like a ninja when it came to intel gathering. Izuku still remembered when he allowed her to shadow him as one when he delivered his counter-drug to Trigger to the police. An article about that was in the school paper the next day. Saki was on the verge of tearing the paper. That alien maggot! I'm gonna kill him! Taku raised a confused brow. Okoto, why are you so hot about this? The ash blonde calmed herself. I just don't like people making a spectacle of me, okay? Saki, you're making a bigger deal out of this than it is, Kiyuki said, though she empathized with her friend. It was something she'd have to deal with. Nothing wrong with a little popularity. Her eyes narrowed in the far corner of the cafeteria, spotting a camera aimed at them. It was clearly Kagami. Kiyuki quickly wrapped her arms around Kriya's neck, who was surprised by this sudden action, even more so when she started playfully nibbling on his right ear. She could hear the camera taking photos. That's because you like attention, Ki-chan. I don't like having a bunch of eyes on me, Saki said, putting her left hand to her cheek. Case in point, she said, noting the small camera on the far end of the area that most wouldn't have noticed. Izuku followed her line of sight as he finished his katsudan. That's probably Kagami, he thought. Taku read the article, and after a few seconds he read the whole thing. Aoi sat next to Izuku as Taku passed him the newspaper. He gave it a quick read and was a well-written, descriptive article. There was no bashing in it at all, it was fully supportive. No wonder the school was liking it. It had specific details about Saki and Kiyuki, even going so far as to mention that Kiyuki was blood-related to the two gods of martial arts. Only people in the know knew those details. This was definitely an article written by Kuzukabe. This is actually a pretty well-written article, Some of these photos may put too much emphasis on both your chests, but I'm sure that's subjective. Saki groaned. Seriously, what is so interesting about these? She asked, gesturing to her endowed chest, truly annoyed. Everything, Aoi said shamelessly. Saki sensed Taku's finger inching towards her left boob again. Bug, move that hand another inch and you won't have it anymore. Her voice was calm with her tone threatening, making Taku retract his hand. Kiyuki pouted. She's right. Everyone turned to her. Everyone's so stuck on Saki's boobs, what's wrong with mine? She playfully complained. You have 36 double Ds while Okoto has 38s, a small but subtle distinction. Aoi answered confidently, having visually taken their measurements on their first meeting. I'm gonna gloss over how you know that. Izuku's sweat dropped with a wary smile. Iruka blushed heavily, feeling a little insecure as she wasn't nearly as well endowed as the two other girls at the table. How can you talk about this so casually? You guys are perverts, she exclaimed cutely. I'm merely a lover and admirer of the female form. If that makes me a pervert, so be it, Taku stated confidently. Same here, Aoi added. For the record, Tabihara, your lower curves stand out more than your curves up top. Kiyuki's eyes widened as she registered his words. Guys stare at my butt, she thought, this new information setting in. Her boobs were big, but they weren't the biggest, and she definitely didn't want to be the same size as her mom. She liked training and being active, and the last thing she wanted was a pair of G's on her chest. Izuku got up. Alright, I'm taking off, everyone. Kiyuki saw he had finished his food, but it was still weird for him to leave before it was time to head back to class. Leaving so soon? Yeah, I need to get some time alone and clear my head. See you all back in class. He answered her and walked away. Kiyuki watched the brunette leave. She turned back to her gray-haired friend. Taku? What is with him today? He's got a lot on his mind, Tabihara, he answered as he playfully wrapped around Saki and rested his right arm on her shoulder, causing the girl to blush. Saki couldn't even find it in her to hit him. All she could think was what a persistent bastard he was. Izuku left the cafeteria, the thoughts of last night still very fresh in his mind. He was glad he was able to prevent a serious outbreak, but he got there too late to save everybody. He didn't regret his detour, but it ate up too much time. Everything about last night put him on edge with the multiple missed opportunities. He could have stopped Tachibana's group, saved more prison guards and taken down the League of Villains, but he was only able to stop a prison break. Last night, one had gotten the message from Intek and was skywalking towards Tartarus prison. He was flying over Nagoya when the scent of blood hit his nostrils. He stopped himself, looked down, and saw a hole in the side of what seemed like an abandoned warehouse. Kicking off the air, he landed gracefully on the ground. Looking into the building, he sensed no life inside. Quickly going inside, the first thing he noticed was a pair of severed legs in blue jeans and dark shoes on the floor surrounded by a pool of blood. Near that was a gray-cum-lead corpse. His analytic skills began to kick in as he quickly collected a blood sample. He looked down at the crumpled body. This guy. It's as if he was turned to dust, but there's no blood here. One paused for a moment. I think Shigaraki did this, he thought as he peeped the pair of legs on the floor. He crouched down. This one had their entire upper body taken out. An instant kill, he thought to himself, thinking this looked familiar. He had seen something like this before but didn't want to think about who may have been behind this, because if he did it meant he was interacting with the League. Turning to his right, he saw a glint in the moonlight and saw a familiar-looking item. It looked like one of the quirk-erasing bullets they got from Shaiha Saikai. The needle was bent but the blood inside was still full, telling that this bullet missed its mark. He picked it up and quickly inspected it. There's no question. Overhaul was here, he thought aloud. He wanted to stay and investigate more, but he needed to move. He quickly pocketed the evidence he collected and leaped back into the air, putting this discovery on the back burner until he handled the Tartarus situation. End flashback. Izuku was in the midst of his thoughts as he made his way to the gym. His eyes drifted to the left as he exited the hallway into a corridor where he spotted a staircase. He sensed several presences and a surprisingly familiar one. Close to the top of the staircase he spotted a familiar toddler boy with light brown hair. Is that Kotaro? What's he doing away from the daycare? He thought as in the next moment some students rounded the corner, bumping into the little boy and sending him falling down the stairs. Izuku's eyes widened at seeing this, and in a flash he caught him along with the bento he was carrying before he could hit his head on the stairs and tumble down. He held the boy in his arms. Kotaro's eyes, which were usually stoic and blank, had a look of clear surprise. The students that bumped into him were even more so. Where did that kid come from? A girl asked. She was beautiful with long black hair, with bangs, brown eyes and a curvy figure wearing the Sakai school uniform. Don't worry, he's okay, Izuku assured her. He looked down at the boy in his arms. Kotaro, what are you doing here? The stone-faced toddler merely pointed at the bento in his other hand. Ni-chan. That may have been all he said, but Izuku spent enough time with this boy to know how he operates. I see. Kashima forgot his lunch and you were bringing it to him. Kotaro nodded his head while giving a sound of acknowledgement. All right, I'll help you take this to him. He began to walk up the stairs when he felt a grip on his arm. Kotaro's expression was still blank, but there was a clear message, and that was he had to do this on his own. Izuku got the message. Okay, Kotaro. He put him down and handed him the bento. He took it into his small hands and rounded the corner to go up the second flight of steps. I think that kid's on his first errand? The male student asked. Though he had strong feminine features, he was definitely a boy. I think so too, Izuku agreed. He almost shed a tear. He is such a good boy. We need more kids like him, you have no idea. The black-haired girl tilted her head. Are you about to cry? No, I'm just emotional. He took a good look at his fellow students, recognizing them. You're Yumiko Jabami and Hideyoshi Kinoshita from Class C, right? And you're Midoriya from Class S. Yumiko responded. That I am. I'm gonna stay and make sure he makes it to your class, so you two can go about your business. Hideyoshi turned to Kotaro, who was making his way up the steps. Wait, that kid's going to our class? Yeah, he's taking that bento to Kashima, Izuku stated. Yumiko looked at Kotaro. That's Kashima's little brother. He's so adorable. She cutely brought a hand to her cheek. I'm not seeing the family resemblance, but I wish I had a brother like that, Hideyoshi commented as he watched the toddler's effort to climb the stairs. Yumiko smiled. Unfortunate. Because you only have a twin sister, who you happen to be prettier than. Don't let her hear you say that, Izuku commented. Hey! I'm still a guy, Yumiko! He shot back defensively. I know. I'm just stating a fact, the girl replied casually. She looked at Izuku. Well, we must be going. Let's play a game together sometime, Midoriya, she said with a beautiful smile. Not a chance. I know about you, Yumiko Jabami, our very own compulsive gambler. She showed no anger by that statement. She smiled beautifully at him while crossing her fingers. I just love the thrill of risky games. Noted. Excuse me. He went around to watch Kotaro. He made sure everyone coming down stayed to the right so as to not bump into him again. His dedication to climb those steps was truly inspiring. It was probably the hardest he's worked at anything, and he was determined to see it through. After a while, Kotaro made it to the top of the steps. He firmly held onto the bento. The last leg of his errand started now. Izuku guided him as they made their way to Class 1C. The door was open and students were talking amongst themselves. He spotted Ryuichi sitting with Kamitani and several other classmates, as well as the food on his desk. So his classmates shared their lunch with him. Kotaro caught up to him. Hey, Kashima! The dark brown-haired boy turned towards the voice. Midoriya? Hey, what's up? I've got a little visitor for you. His head gestured downward to Kotaro standing in the doorway. The older boy was admittedly surprised to see his younger brother. He quickly stood up. "Kotaro?" He walked up to him, spotted the bento in his small hands and crouched down to his level. "What are you doing here?" Kotaro raised the bento. "Nichan, lunch." The purity of his actions was beyond adorable. Ryuichi was completely moved by this and all the effort he must have put in to bring this to him. Izuku happily watches this moment between brothers. "Kashima, you can't eat again," he heard one of his classmates say before Kamitani shoved a bun in his mouth to shut him up. Ryuichi took the bento from his brother. "Thank you so much, Kotaro." The toddler kept a blank yet thankful expression. The older brother smiled when he heard his younger brother's stomach rumble. He gently picked him up. "Come on, let's eat lunch together." Izuku left with the two, with Kashima shooting Izuku a thankful look before they went to the staircase to eat. "That brotherly bond truly warms my heart," the greenette thought as he made his way to the gym to shoot some hoops. In all honesty, he just wanted the day to be over so he could do hero work, as he had a lot of investigating to do. One of which was that online villain Gentle Criminal. He didn't pay him much attention at the time, but to see a low-level crook with the likes of Tachibana, Stain and Kazumaki was shocking. He's seen a couple of his videos, but it mostly seemed like harmless, theatrical fun, so he never thought of bothering him. To him it looked like Gentle cared more about people seeing it was him who did the crime rather than the crime itself. It wouldn't surprise him if a video of what they did in Tartarus last night was online right now. Not only that, but wasted loads of time looking for Stain in the wrong place. He's studied his M.O, so he's likely to go back to Matsue or chose a new hunting ground where he'll stay for a while. He needed to find him and be sure Iwabumi was the last hero he'd hurt. Issues for later. Right now, he needed to clear his head on the court. The school day came to an end. Class S got their things and began to leave the class. Many were talking to each other and making plans for after school. Saki had put her stuff in her bag. "The first day back is in the books." Kiyuki turned to Izuku, who was looking at something on his laptop. "What are you getting into later on?" Izuku shot her a quick, rhetorical look. "Isn't it obvious?" She looked at him cutely. "It is. But you could take the day off and hang with us this afternoon." Izuku typed a few keys. "While normally I'd like that, I can't." He paused. "Not after what happened last night," he thought as he continued to look at his computer. Kiyuki took in his response. The look in his eyes was telling. "By the way, you want to tell me what's been bothering you?" Saki eyed him. "I'm curious too, Midoriya." Izuku looked at the two girls before sighing. He looked at Kiyuki. "Let's just say an old senpai of mine has been acting up recently." Kiyuki raised an eyebrow. "That's cryptic." "I want to handle this before Michiko does, that's all I want to say for now." The group of friends leave school together. They talked amongst themselves as they took the train ride back to Mizudafu. They didn't have much homework on their first day back, so it was a relatively simple school day. Izuku and Taku went to his place after school and were greeted by Eri and Inko, the little girl jumping into Izuku's arms when they entered. It had been almost 3 months since she came to live with them, and he's enjoyed every moment of it. The Midoriyas loved her from day one, and regardless of her blood relatives, she belonged with them. After having a moment with Eri, the two went to his room. Izuku pulled out the quark-erasing bullet he found last night, and on his computer revealed the research he'd been doing on it. "So this is what's been on your mind all day," Taku stated as he eyed Izuku's work. "This on top of several other things. I actually found this in a warehouse in Nagoya last night. That's actually what kept me from getting to Tartarus sooner." "Nagoya? That's pretty out there. What do you think Overhaul was doing?" "He was meeting with the League. I found a crumbled body and a pair of legs on the floor, the effects of Shigaraki and Overhaul's quirks. If I had to guess, they met. A confrontation ensued and ended in violence." He picked up the bullet. "That being said, this round is different from the ones we've studied before. It's still made from Ares' blood and cells, but it's weaker. They've lost their main ingredient for the bullets. They probably made a less potent version in order to preserve whatever DNA they have left of Eri, Taku surmised. My thoughts exactly. But I'm a little worried they were able to get in touch with the League. I also took a blood sample from those legs and found they were all that remained of Kenji Hikishi. Taku narrowed his eyes. Magna? We both saw what Overhaul's quirk can do that night at the masquerade. He went painlessly at least. Why do you think he wanted to meet with the League? Something All for One said last night got me thinking. I think Overhaul wanted to recruit the League into his organization, Izuku answered. Taku turned his head. That makes sense. Despite how small they are, the League does have name recognition. A small-time Yakuza like the Hasaikai being associated with them will get the people in the shadows talking. Not just that. Villains sense the vacuum left by All Might and All for One, and want to spread their power and influence. Overhaul is very business-savvy, so I think this was his attempt to do that. Taku sat on his bed. As far as organized crime syndicates go, the Hasaikai aren't that impressive. I've dug into their history as much as I could, and to my shock they're surprisingly honorable. At least that's what the majority of the info I have found says about them. Izuku registered his words. Criminals like Yakuza have been barely surviving since All Might's reign. My guess is Overhaul saw the potential in Eri's power to bring them prominence. There's no honor whatsoever in what he did to her. True, but there's also the fact that before Taku could finish his sentence, there was a ring at the front door. Izuku sensed his mom was going to answer it. He opened his door and saw his mother open the door to two casually dressed policemen. Izuku closed his door. Cops are here, they probably want to talk about Eri. Let's pick back up on this after they leave. Taku nodded in agreement. The two boys exited the room as Inko welcomed in the two officers. They all sat at the kitchen table. Thank you for allowing us and Mrs. Midoriya. Let me get straight to the point. We're here to give an update of what's been happening in our investigation and to check up on Eri. Where's she? One of the cops asked. She's in her room, Izuku answered before his mother. Does she need to be here for this? She can stay in her room for now. I just wanted to be sure you knew where she was. Although we may need her to ID someone in a moment. He along with his partner eyed the Griantets in the room. So, how are things? Inko was the first to answer. Great. The time she's been here has been phenomenal. We love having her, and she's truly become part of the family. That's good to hear. And how are things usually? What does she do daily? Eri's just a normal kid. She still has her mental scars, but she's full of love, Izuku stated. Inko smiled at her son in agreement. That's right. She likes to play, enjoys drawing and going outside. I've been helping her study and learn. She's also making friends and enjoys spending time with them. My husband is back home from working overseas and he's accepted her with open arms. And though they haven't been together long, they both love each other. On top of that, we spend a lot of time together playing and just hanging out. She's so innocent, and it's cute how curious she is about a lot of things. She loves trying new things and just having fun, Izuku added. Well, it seems she's very happy and you enjoy having her here. We're here to give an update on our investigation and to check in on her. So let me start with saying we're still keeping tabs on the Shy Hasaikai. The movements of the group have changed in the past few months, almost as if they're all on edge about something. Do you think they may be looking for Eri? Inko asked. We suspect that. After she came to live with you, the group was asking around about a girl with pale blue-gray hair, red eyes and a horn. They kept it within the city, so we didn't find it prudent to inform you. Inko was a little worried by those words. What is Eri's relation to anyone in that criminal organization? We've run her name through several databases, but a record of her birth hasn't come up anywhere. When asked who the girl was, they claimed she was Chisaki's daughter, but as I said, no record of the girl's birth exists. He pulled a paper out of a briefcase. We actually had a theory about the girl's origins, and after exploring it we were able to find a birth certificate for Eri Sagara. He ended these words by sliding a birth certificate on the table in front of the two Midoriyas, and both Inko and Izuku scanned the paper. The date showed she was born in Los Angeles, California at Coruscant Hospital on December 21st, with the year meaning she'd be turning 7 this year. Her parents' names were Sanosuke and Mika Sagara. Izuku eyed the two officers. "And you're sure this is Eri's birth certificate?" "We're fairly sure. The woman, Mika Sagara, was born Mika Akashiya, and is actually the daughter of Shiro Akashiya, founder and head of the Shai Hasaikai." All three were surprised by this. "But I thought that Chisaki guy was in charge?" Izuku asked, playing ignorant. One of the cops pulled out a small photo. It was of an older man with slick-back gray hair, a serious expression, and small gray eyes. "This is Shiro Akashiya, and while we're on the subject, he actually hasn't been seen in months." "Do you think he's dead?" Izuku asked. "It's a definite possibility, but unlikely. Chisaki as well as the other members respect the man too much, so it's unlikely they'd just kill him. That being said, their movements and operation became more questionable since he disappeared." "What do you mean by questionable?" Inko asked. "The police have been keeping tabs on this particular group for years, and as far as criminals go, they've always had a semblance of honor. They never got involved in the drug trade until Chisaki took the reins. Not only that, if the girl is Akashiya's granddaughter, there's no way he'd allow Chisaki to experiment on her." Izuku took in the officer's words. Even though they were criminals, there were still lines some people wouldn't cross, and along with that, family genuinely means something. If all this is true, it means Overhaul was hurting Eri behind the old man's back and he didn't know. But if Eri has parents who live in America, then why was she here in Japan and subjected to a life of torture? Do they not care? He was about to ask about Eri's parents when Inko beat him to it. "What about Eri's parents? Why are they overseas and she's over here?" The cops had solemn expressions at these questions. One of them sighed. "Eri's father, Sanosuke Sagara, is dead. We were able to find a death certificate saying he died 2 years ago of a quirk-related accident. These words completely shocked Izuku. Eri quirk is very powerful, and it only works on living things. He had a terrible suspicion that Eri accidentally killed her father when her quirk manifested. Maybe she'd been abandoned by her mother because of that incident. Regarding the girl's quirk, we received the report from the doctor we sent to test her, and it's unlike anything in her family. That being said, it can be assumed she was left in the care of her grandfather, who unwisely trusted Chisaki to take care of her." Everyone took in the officer's words, the full magnitude of Eri's situation fully setting in. Inko eyed the officers. "Thank you for sharing this with us. Is there anything more you have to say?" "We're close to nailing them. The department is teaming up with Sanitai's agency to bring it home." "All Might's former sidekick? That sounds assuring." Izuku perked up, showing his hero nerd side and interest in this news. "It really is. Well, that's all we have to report for now, but before we go, we'd like to see Eri and ask her some questions." "That's fine." Izuku got up and rhythmically knocked on the wall behind one of the couches. Eri's room was on the other side, and this was a way of calling her without going to her door. "Eri, can you come here for a minute?" A moment later, the door to her room opened and Eri came into the living room. She was wearing a short-sleeved dress shirt under a blue pinafore with black leggings and white socks. She opened her door and saw when Inko let the police in, but didn't think much of it. All eyes were on her when she walked in the room, causing her to feel a little uneasy, but the warm smiles of Izuku, Inko, and Taku put her at ease. One of the cops smiled warmly at her upon seeing her unease. "Hello, Eri. Do you remember us?" He gestured to him and his partner. Eri shook her head. "Yes," she answered honestly, remembering these were the two policemen who brought her here in the first place. Inko perked up. "Eri, these men want to ask you a few questions." The cops went on to talk to Eri. How her life has been since coming here, what her days have been like. It was a stark contrast to how her life was before she came to stay with the Midoriya family. The cops asked her multiple questions about her life here and how she felt about the Midoriyas, causing her to shed a few tears from her trying to express how much she loved them. She spoke of how warm they all were and how they were the first people to show her kindness. For the first time in her life, Eri felt what it was like to be loved. She had a brother, a mom, and now a dad. She couldn't describe it, but it made her truly happy. During their talk, she tensed up worriedly. A part of her was afraid they'd take her away from them, but the officers assured her that wasn't the case. They just wanted to see how she was doing, and they'd gotten their answer. After a talk with Inko, the cops left the apartment, everyone unsure of how to approach the still-on-edge Eri. Izuku got up from his seat and wrapped his arms around the little girl. He held her close to him. He absolutely loved having her around, and couldn't imagine her not being there to hug him when he came home. Izuku pulled away from her and stroked her hair. While Eri wasn't the smartest child in the world, but she was pretty forward. When you were open with her, she was open with you, and this was one of those times. Izuku pulled her into a gentle embrace, his warmness brightening up the little girl's heart. Eri, never forget this one thing. It's not about where you come from. It's where you belong. His words were warm as their embrace deepened. The sun had gone down, and one was flying over Nagano. He got an alert on the app saying that there was a wild animal loose in the city. He accepted the request and called the one who posted the report. He touched down in front of an apartment complex and found a tan-skinned man with short black curly hair waving him down. The hero landed and approached the man. "Hello, sir. What seems to be the problem?" The tan-skinned man had a look of unease, and one could sense the man's worry and mixed emotions. "Thanks for coming, I really appreciate it." "No problem. Your name?" "Akashi Yuki." "Nice to meet you, Mr. Yuki. You reported a wild animal loose in the city. What kind of animal are we dealing with, and where did you see it?" He brought a hand to his mouth. "That's the problem, actually." He paused for a moment. My brother, he's a big lover of animals. He's actually in the hospital right now because his pet bit him." One took in the man's words, crossing his arms and eyeing him. "And what kind of pet is this?" The man's expression became ever more uneasy. "We told the hospital it was a dog." "And I take it wasn't that?" he asked sternly with a raised brow. "If this is an animal-related incident, why not just call animal control? They can handle this." Yuki's eyes widened at these words. "I can't afford for them to go into the apartment." One was now even more suspicious. "Why not? What exactly is up there?" "You'll find out in a minute. Can you please just come with me?" The hero nodded in response, and they made their way to the designated apartment. They were silent until they made it to the door. Yuki turned to the hero when he put his hand on the door to open it. "1. This is a serious situation. I just wanted you to know that. I heard about how you handled that bear a few weeks ago and thought you could work that same magic here," he explained before opening the door and allowing the hero to walk in first. Before one had even entered the apartment, he could sense what was inside. He had gotten a good feel for this creature during his last trip to the zoo. He entered the darkly lit apartment, only illuminated by the TV. There was a strong scent of urine, and straight ahead of him was the kitchen, dipping to his left. When he entered the living room, the first thing he could see was a large yellow eye. The hero kept his composure even as the form of a full-grown tiger came into view. The big cat locked eyes with the hero and was laying down on his large pet bed, looking very peaceful. One turned to Yuki. "So this is what you meant?" "It's a long story, but basically he bit my brother in the leg, and now we have to get him out of here." One looked at the ground and spotted a splatter of blood on the floor, piecing together what had happened. "You have one of the most dangerous animals in the world in an apartment." One put a hand to his head, completely shocked as he thought he'd seen it all. The tiger hadn't made a move and laid calmly on his bed. "Unbelievable. Does it have a name?" "It's a boy, and his name is Hero." "So what can you do?" "This is nothing I can handle. But first I have to call animal control. He'll probably be taken to the nearest zoo. But your brother is in a lot of trouble." One pulled out his phone and called animal control. They thought he was pranking them at first. 10 minutes later they pulled up to the apartment complex. One explained the situation and they handed him the tranquilizer dosage he needed, telling them to be ready when he told them to come in. Going back to the apartment, one went inside and had Yuki and the control team wait outside. He faced the big cat who was eyeing him while still laying on his bed. Hiro opened his mouth and yawned. He started to get up from his bed. One flung the tranquilizer at the big cat, hitting him in the butt and making him go berserk. He slammed against the wall behind him and began to thrash across the living room, his size and momentum causing the whole apartment to shake. He roared so loud he was sure the entire building could hear it. The tiger ready to charge at the hero, but a wave of pressure passed over him, freezing him with fear and making him rethink moving from his current spot. One kept his will bearing down on the big cat as he calmly stepped towards him. The look in the tiger's yellow eyes was of full, unadulterated fear. It lowered its body into a submissive state. He laid on the floor as the drug coursed through his system, making no move to retaliate. One placed a gentle hand on the beast's head. He could sense its fear. It tried to let out a prideful roar only for it to come out as a low growl. One sat with him on the floor and brought his head down, allowing him to relax and fall asleep. The hero patted his beautiful fur all while telling him to just relax in a gentle and warm tone. After a while the tiger's eyes slowly closed and he drifted off to sleep. One sat next to the sleeping tiger, choosing to wait before he let everyone in. He took off his left glove and continued to pat him and stroke his beautiful fur. The animal was truly beautiful. He couldn't help but admire the intrinsic magnificence of this tiger. As incredible as this tiger was, he couldn't help feeling a little angry. Aoishi Yuki, the owner of this apartment, had something so dangerous in his apartment. He's definitely going to pay him a visit in the hospital after this, but now that the tiger was knocked out they needed to move him. He inspected the apartment, while animal control came in and they loaded the tiger on a gurney. There were 3 rooms in the apartment with one that was clearly for Hiro, made evident from the mattress on the floor with various toys and claw marks on the wall that reached towards the ceiling. A small crowd of people had gathered, and when they came down the stairs it was pandemonium, many people rushing for pictures and a few even trying to touch the tiger. Many of the neighbors had heard the commotion and were utterly shocked to know one of their neighbors was a full-grown hyper-carnivore. One was keeping the public blocked off when he sensed several presences above him. Looking up he saw the large, draconic form of Ryukyu and a girl with long periwinkle hair in a blue and mint green hero costume. "Ryukyu!" One called out. The two landed, surprising everyone. The Dragoon hero deactivated her quirk, reverting to her normal state. She looked around at the scene as she approached the independent hero. "What happened here, One?" she asked while the other girl stood next to her, eyeing him with a bubbly smile. "An animal issue. We had a tiger in an apartment here." Ryuki raised a brow. "A tiger?" she thought as she walked around and looked into the truck and saw the sleeping big cat. "Unbelievable. I said the same thing. Apparently the owner's at the hospital from the tiger biting him. Not only that, but apparently Hiro's grown up in the apartment since he was a cub. I've spoken to a couple people and apparently he's a bit of an urban legend in this building. Every time someone saw him in a window or heard a roar they thought they were just imagining things." "Well, can you blame them?" Ryukyu exclaimed. "I cannot," One replied casually. "That is so wild," the blue-haired girl squealed. "Hey One! Did you get to touch him? Was his fur soft?" "I did. And it was. And you are?" She gestured to herself. "I'm Nijire-chan, and I'm working with Ryukyu as her work-study student." I see. And how is that going for you?" "Really great. Ryukyu is awesome and I always get to learn something," she answered happily. "Well, that is the point, isn't it? Hey One, why do you wear a mask? Are you trying to hide your identity or look cool?" she asked fast. "Can it be both? How tall are you? What's your training like? Are you really quirkless? What's that like?" Her questions came so fast it caused One to sweat drop. "There's so much I want to know about you. You want to patrol with us?" Ryukyu put a hand on the excited girl's shoulder. Easy, Nijire, she said with a small smile, and her voice was calm. Her golden eyes met One's lenses. Forgive her, One. Her bubbly personality becomes a little eccentric when she gets excited. One smiled warmly. It's fine, I'm sure that attracts many people to you. Nijire cutely smiled with closed eyes. It's nice to have a lot of friends. There's no greater gift than friendship, One replied. By the way, I spoke with Mirko the other day and she floated that team-up offer to me, he said, meeting Ryukyu's eyes. Oh, does that mean you're interested? I am. I'll need to know the particulars, but whatever it is, I'm in. I'm glad to hear that. She saw that animal control pulled off with the tiger, and the crowd was starting to disperse. They needed to head back to the office and file paperwork. One, do you have some time? We need to head back to the office. I have time to spare. Plus, this is a good time to talk. Ryukyu nodded. Good. She morphed back into her dragon form. We're heading back, Nijire-chan. Right behind you, the girl happily exclaimed as she rose up off spiral energy from her feet. The two women flew into the air, the independent hero watching them from the ground. Nijire-chan looked down. One, aren't you coming? Yeah, I was just curious about your quirk. It looks like energy in the wave sense. He leaped into the air, meeting the two heroines. Nijire smiled at him. Well, yeah. My quirk's called wave motion. I can turn my vitality into energy that I release as spiral shockwaves. One gripped his chin, smiling as he took in her words. I see. You can use your quirk to fly, increasing your mobility. But if I had to guess, if it comes as a spiral, it's powerful but not fast. Nijire got in his face. You've barely seen my quirk but guessed its weakness so easily. Are you a quirk nerd or something? One chuckled. Actually, yes. Are you two done? We do have to go. Yeah, let's go, Ryukyu. One said as he kicked off the air and flew ahead of them, the Dragoon hero and her trainee behind him. All three of them flew in the direction of Ryukyu's agency. As they went, both Ryukyu and Nijire and watching One's skywalk, both impressed at seeing a quirkless person flying. Ryukyu's draconic eyes narrowed. So that's how you do that. One shot a glance behind him as he soared. Your legs are so strong you can kick the air so fast it creates sonic booms under your feet that act as footholds or propel you forward. Incredible. Nijire's eyes widened at her mentor's explanation. The fact this all came back to physical ability and training was insane. She caught up to One. Whoa, is she right? The hero met her blue eyes. She is. My skywalk is probably the most useful technique I've ever made. Hell, even All Might can't fly. But a quirkless hero like me found a way. That's crazy. You won a race to the agency? I also have a variation of this technique called Skywalk Flash Step. He ended his words by disappearing in a flash of speed, appearing behind Ryukyu, startling the heroine. He then appeared behind Nijire-chan and then Ryukyu before moving all around as if he were teleporting. He stopped behind Nijire. This is my faster version of Skywalk. Still want a race? Sure do. Let's go then. Ryukyu, countdown. 3, 2, 1, go! Nijire blasted off with her quirk, while One disappeared in a flash of speed. One appeared on the roof of a 3-story building with a poster of Ryukyu on the side wearing a piece from her Dragwar clothing line. So this is Ryukyu's agency, the Dragon's Lair. He thought as looked in the distance, and saw the heroines approaching. He flipped off the roof, landed on the ground and waited for the two. Looking in the distance, he saw Nijire getting closer, but he took specific note of Ryukyu and how she was flying. The way her right wing moved was a clear sign she wasn't fully healed. It made sense. During the storm, he saw how most of the right side of her back was melted by acid. It's a miracle she was able to be healed, and the damage wasn't that noticeable. One leaned against a dragon column at the entrance as Nijire-chan landed, followed by Ryukyu. One put a hand to his mouth and faked a yawn of boredom. What took you so long? Nijire cutely pouted, causing the hero to chuckle from how funny and cute it was. You are truly adorable. One and Nijire had a cute back and forth before Ryukyu urged them both inside. Entering the hero agency, one was impressed by the interior decor. The walls were predominantly red while having a strong Chinese theme which included columns of golden Chinese dragons and statues of guardian lions. One stood and admired the interior as Nijire and Ryukyu kept walking. Really loving the Chinese theme you've got going on here, Ryukyu. Glad to know you like it. Nijire twirled around, flashing a cute smile. Welcome to the agency, One. He smiled back at her. Thank you for having me. Ryukyu called one of her sidekicks and had them file the paperwork for the work they'd done today. Nijire went off to help while One and the Dragoon hero went to a conference room to talk. They sat at a table across from each other, the atmosphere calm between them. So here we are, the heroine stated. I'll be honest, you're a lot more welcoming than I expected you to be. While I can understand the animosity you receive from heroes, I never had a reason to hate you. On top of that, I've been interested in you for a while now. Oh, should I add you to my list of heroines who are secretly in love with me? He asked jokingly. Don't flatter yourself, I have a boyfriend. Lucky man. One replied with a sly smile. Well, let's get straight to the point about the case. There's a drug trafficking ring here in town that we've been investigating for a while. And you want my help along with several others to bring it down. That's right. She lowered her head. It's actually a little embarrassing for a top hero to need to ask for this much help for an investigation, but it's necessary. It's nothing to be ashamed of, Ryukyu. We all need help sometimes. I was hurt pretty bad during the storm. I'm actually thinking of making an appointment with Master Keizo to get me back into form. She chose her words on purpose, knowing he was also a student of Rising Sky. One caught the look in her eyes. Well, he is a Renaissance man in every sense. There aren't many things he can't do, as unorthodox as his methods may be. She shot him a knowing look with a small smile. Oh, I'm well aware. I've seen it many times throughout my training. She crossed her arms, keeping her expression. Ever heard of Iki Takeda? Izuka raised a brow, surprised and getting an idea of where this was going. The boxer? The very same. That guy wanted to be a professional fighter more than anyone I ever met. Back in high school, he suffered an injury that left his left arm paralyzed. He gave up on his dream and became street fighting delinquent. Even with one good arm, he was able to carve out a decent reputation. Long story short, I ended up having to babysit Rumi when she snuck out of the dojo to go to a fight club where I saw Takeda there. Not liking the path I saw him going down, I stepped into the ring to save him. Without using my quirk, I was able to defeat him and drag him back to Rising Sky to get patched up. Master Keizo, with his infinite skill, was able to treat his arm just by squeezing his shoulder a couple hundred times. On top of that, he trained him to get back into boxing. One chuckled. That sounds like the master's genius. Takeda's the best boxer in the country, and I've actually been to one of his matches. His sonic left followed by his tornado uppercut is a two-piece combo most people wouldn't want to be on the receiving end of. A killer combo in every sense. One raised a finger. Michiko's actually told me a handful of stories like that. She told me once how she went to personally get Rumi after she snuck out in the middle of the night. Every time she would leave, Michiko always came to me. She'd turn my lights on, ask where she went, I'd tell her and go right back to sleep. The next morning at training she'd be covered in bumps and bruises I was positive she didn't get from street fighting. Sounds like you had some interesting times during training. We did. That bunny was always there to get me in trouble both in and out of school. She smiled lowly, closed her eyes and nodded her head. But we always got ourselves out of trouble again and again. One met her eyes, smiling warmly. It's truly incredible, the bonds that martial arts can bring us, he said, thinking of how everything he is and has today, his bonds, skills, life is because he trained. It really is. Ryukyu paused before her face became serious. One, before we discuss the case, may I make a request? Of course, though I suspect I already know what you want to ask me, he replied with a sly smile and a knowing look behind his cowl. Show me your face. I want to see the person behind that cowl. And my detective skills remain as sharp as ever, he said, his tone cool and calm. While I don't doubt you'd keep my identity to yourself, I'm not completely comfortable just revealing my face to you. This is our first time genuinely speaking after all. She sighed. I had a feeling you'd say that. You should know after you defeated us that day at the shipyard, the top 10 heroes had a meeting about you. I knew you were a student of Rising Sky the moment I saw you fight. When the others were trying to put pieces together to discover who you were, I said nothing and instead chose to speak with the masters. Unsurprisingly, they knew but wouldn't tell me, not like I was expecting them to. The point is, I racked my brain trying to understand you. The pain behind your words that day have stuck with me. I wanted to know why you didn't trust heroes or the system, then with your video and interview it all made sense. Michiko said to look at my hero's journey from the start to now, and to also think about the world we live in if I wanted to understand you. Would I be standing here without my quirk? Who could say? But I can honestly say you deserve to be a part of this world. You've always had what it took to be a hero, and we all should have seen that. One took in her words. I've accepted the ignorance and blatant discrimination of hero society, but a part of me will never truly forget it. I could just give up on my dream, no matter how many of my teachers, peers, and even heroes told me to. And all of us are fortunate you persevered through that adversity. All I want is to just be a hero. It's really that simple. Ryukyu smiled at him. Just a hero, huh? She closed her eyes. All right then. All that being said, I'd actually like us to be friends, Ryukyu. These words surprised the heroine. I don't sense that you hate me for one reason or another, and I'd be happy if this was the first of many team-ups. Maybe even train and go grab a bite to eat together sometime. That's a very forward friend request. I thought women liked the direct approach. He joked. She smiled, closed her eyes with a lowly smile while crossing her arms under her impressive chest. True. I take it that's the same relationship you have with Mirko? Mirko actually figured out my identity on her own. Since then she's become a special friend to me. Teaming up with her is really nice. Especially considering she doesn't do team-ups. Ryukyu shot playfully. Precisely. Alright let's be friends. I appreciate it. Now about the case, he stated, ready to get down to business. Ryukyu gave him a nod before going on to explain their investigation. They'd be making their move in a few days and all those aiding the agency would meet here at that time to move out. One sat with Ryukyu taking in everything she had to say. He would let Mirko know he was in and give her the details later. He's had so much on his mind today, and he still has so much to take care of. The world is changing, and so many in the shadows are working fast. He needed to stay focused, and to keep himself sharp. Being the hero he is, there was no doubt in himself to handle all that was to come. Tachibana, the League, Stain and now Overhaul and the Shy Hasaikai. They were all busy, and he'd have to step up his investigations to find them, and he resolved to stop each and every one of them. Chapter 33 Heroic Duty. It had been 2 days since the police came to talk about Eri, and Izuku had a lot going on. His dad and Eri had joined him for his morning workout, and the three enjoyed the morning. Once they made it home, Hisashi and Eri began preparing breakfast. Normally Inko would cook, but she was still asleep. Hisashi had put the rice in a rice cooker, and was preparing the fish for grilling while Eri prepared ingredients for miso soup. Hisashi loved spending time with the kids. His new job would eat up a lot of time, so it was important to make as much time as he could. Eri also spent a lot of time watching and helping Inko in the kitchen. She was becoming quite the little chef. Izuku had gone to get washed up and get dressed for school. Eri was on a step next to Hisashi, who was cooking while she helped and observed. Eri watched intently at her father figure. Papa, what were you and Mama doing last night? Hisashi's eyes widened at this, getting an idea what she meant. What do you mean, Eri? Last night I heard Mama screaming, but it sounded like she was happy, and she kept telling you to give her something. The innocence behind her words was so pure it was heartbreaking. Hisashi had to take a moment to think. He and Inko had a lot of hot sex last night, hence why she's still asleep. Eri couldn't sleep, and on her way to Izuku's room she heard the sounds coming from their bedroom. She listened intently to the sounds and voices coming from the room, but before she could open the door and further investigate, Izuku came home from patrol. He led her into his room, stopping her from interrupting their marital time, and let her sleep with him. He slightly cursed his impeccable hearing. While he used to hear them doing it sparingly, now that Dad was home for good he'd be hearing this a lot more, and it disturbed him. Hisashi flipped some fish. Well, Eri, when mommies and daddies love each other they have a special way of playing together. Eri's expression was blank and innocent as she registered his words. Did Mama like what you gave her? Hisashi chuckled lightly. Yeah. In fact, she liked it so much she's getting a good sleep right now because of it. He answered with confidence and the same cool, charming smile he passed down to his son. Eri was content with this answer. She looked at the food being made. Can you cook as good as Mama? Red eyes met as he smiled at her. You'll find out pretty soon, won't you? His thoughts then shifted to her situation. Inko had told him all of what happened from the police visit. Though he'd protect her and keep her safe as best he could, it dawned on him they don't have all the details about Eri. Regardless, this girl needed them and they would be there for her. Hey Eri, you want to hear a riddle? She looked up at him innocently. Sure. A father frog clearly croaks erbit erbit, and mother frog croaks ribbit ribbit, so what sound does their baby frog make? Eri registered his words, her lips pressing and her expression showing her depth of thought. Hisashi put several finished potato cakes on a plate, an amused smile as he watched Eri think. It was reminiscent of the times he challenged a younger Izuku the same way. Ricket tricket, Eri answered, not sounding too confident. That's not it. You want to try again? Eri made a humph of affirmation before she went back to thinking. Hisashi put some finished fish on several plates when he saw Izuku exit his room and head towards the kitchen. He was shirtless, wearing only his school pants and his red shoes. He had a sly smile, phone in hand, when he entered. Eri turned to him with him showing her a picture of a tadpole on his phone. He had heard their entire talk, and though he didn't mind challenging Eri in this way, it didn't mean he couldn't help her. Eri looked at the tadpole and had a look of confusion, not even knowing what she was looking at. Izuku smiled down at her, sighing lowly. Eri, this is what a baby frog looks like. It's called a tadpole. Her eyes widened at this new information. Wahoo! She went back to thinking, but it's clear she wasn't coming up with anything. Izuku and Hisashi shared a look, saying, Go ahead and tell her. Eri, a baby frog is a tadpole and they can't croak at all. Izuku explained calmly. Eri was shocked by this answer. Can I have another one? Izuku gripped his chin, thinking of another riddle. Okay, how about this? When a car rounds a curve, what's the one thing it is sure to lose? Eri thought for a moment before meeting his eyes. Gas. Yeah, but that can happen when a car goes straight too, Izuku replied, forcing her to think again. Parts, she answered, almost hesitantly. Both Izuku and Hisashi were surprised by that answer. I would hope not, Izuku replied. That would be really scary, Hisashi added. Eri's depression deepened as she went back in thought. Though this was fun, Izuku needed to get dressed and eat. I'll just tell you. No, wait, Eri exclaimed. Her expression changed as she seemed to find an answer. Air in the tires. Sure, but that can happen when the car's going straight too. The answer you're looking for, Eri, is speed. Eri adorably deadpanned at this. She lowered her head, causing the two Midoriya men to laugh lightly at her slightly down state. Somehow I thought you'd be better at these, Izuku playfully said through his chuckles. Izumi, give me another! She cutely exclaimed, a new sense of determination shining through her, wanting to get one of these right. Shai Hasaikai main base. Kaichisaki aka Overhaul was in the lab underneath the house, and though this was his place of calm, he couldn't have been any more stressed. It had been nearly 3 months since Eri disappeared and they were running out of product. He was able to curb that problem by making a weaker version of the quirk erasing bullets. These zap a quirk for 2 hours instead of 6. Thankfully, he was close to making the finished product to take away a quirk permanently. Several screens were above him playing the camera footage of their underground passages, all showing the night of Eri's escape. While he was at the underground masquerade trying to conduct business, she was running away. He had told her multiple times how important she was to his plans, and he told his underlings to use the carrot not the stick, but she still wouldn't accept her position apparently. That naughty girl was able to sneak past at least 5 members on her way out, all of whom didn't notice she slipped right by them. When they found out she was gone, he had already made it home from his fiasco. He swiftly killed all those who let her get away, and it took hours to clean that mess up. Since then he's been angry and on edge. He was looking forward to expanding the organization. His plan would eventually allow the Hasaikai to rule Japan from the shadows. Once he made the finished product, everything would have gone smoothly, selling the quirk erasing bullets to the villains while selling the cure to the heroes. Everything in the testing phase was going great until Eri decided to be selfish and put a bullet in his plans. Business was going as usual, but the most important thing was finding Eri and getting her back. Overhaul? A voice called from behind him as he polished a bullet, trying to keep his calm. What is it, Chrono? He asked, recognizing the voice and not turning from what he was doing. We just got word from the League of Villains and they want to have a sit-down, his white-cloaked henchman explained. So it took them 3 days to cool off, that figures. You give a reply? I told Shigaraki about one of our secret tunnels, he'll come to us. Good. Any word on Eri? The man's face lowered behind his plague mask. No, we still haven't found her or picked up any trace of her whereabouts. Overhaul looked up at the screen showing the little girl escaping. That naughty girl, he said, almost growling. I've told the members to expand their search. We tried asking people in the city if they saw her but came up with nothing, even while claiming she was your daughter. We have heroes and the police breathing down our necks, so it's not like we could go to them for help. I hate to admit it, but it's a safe bet she probably went to the police and is now in some kind of protective custody. You think? We've been looking at this wrong. If she is in protective custody, then she may have told them about us, hence why the up in observation of us. They most likely moved her outside the city. Check the neighboring cities and smaller towns. Muzidafu, Samire Town, I don't care. Getting Eri back is our top priority. She's the key to everything. The white-cloaked Yakuza registered his words. I'll tell the men. He turned and walked away, leaving his boss to his work. Overhaul began working on another bullet. He glanced up at the footage of Eri. The form of the little girl burned into his mind. She had a look of desperation that deeply irritated him. He paused the recording just before she went through an exit. He thought of the day he met her. Discovering her quirk was one of the happiest days of his life. Bringing the organization back to prominence would be easy with her power, and it was only fitting the boss's granddaughter would make that happen. All of this was for the Hasaikai. They were on a roll until Eri ruined it. Everyone had to make sacrifices to make the organization great again. That was something the boss didn't understand. All that time, all that testing, they were so close, and now it's slowly crumbling. He's never much cared for children, but Eri should have sucked it up and did what she had to. He did. He looked at the screen showing the final moments of Eri. You're so selfish, little girl. Height Alliance Dormitory. The students returned to the dorm after a hard day of training. They had met the Big Three, where they learned the importance and value of doing a work study. They had learned that they could only go to hero agencies with good track records, meaning most couldn't go with the same heroes they interned with. Upon learning this, several of the students tried reaching out to those same heroes for a work study only to be declined for one reason or another. The students were decompressing in the dorm, pondering the events of the day. Okay, this is a lot harder than I thought it would be. Ciro said with his arms crossed. Ajri put a finger to her cheek. I tried to go to Selki's, but he doesn't meet the requirements. Kirishima laid over the top of the couch. Neither does fourth kind. He doesn't accept students for work study, so I couldn't go to him anyway. There certainly are many hurdles. I understand the need of wanting us to go to reliable agencies, but that doesn't make it easy to find one, Momo stated, sitting across the group with Ashido and Jiro. Ashido leaned back. That doesn't help us out, Yamamoto. I was just saying. Still, it's gonna be tough finding a work study, Jiro stated. Speaking of, why don't you try to go with Mirko again, Yamamoto? Mirko isn't the teaching type. She told me to try and go to Ryukyu. Jiro was surprised by this. The number 9 hero? You should definitely look into that. Eraserhead walked into the dorm. He read the room and saw that they were all thinking of how to do a work study. Mr. Aizawa, I have a question? Momo perked up, approaching her teacher. What is it, Yayorozu? This may be a nonsensical question to ask, but are there any chances of reaching out to one for a work study? Aizawa gave her a blank expression upon hearing her question. He could tell she in particular just wanted to work with her boyfriend. He sighed. That is a nonsensical question. You're asking if you can work with an independent hero to learn how to be a pro hero? It doesn't work that way, obviously. He looked out to his class, spotting Tokoemi coolly leaning against the wall with his arms crossed. Tokoemi, you've got an offer. Hawks has offered you to work with him in Kyushu. The entire class was surprised by this. Whoa, he's the number 3 hero? Ciro exclaimed. Number 2 now, Kaminari corrected. Talk about awesome, Ojiro added. Tokoemi met his teacher's eyes. I humbly accept. All right then, I'll take care of the paperwork for you later. He turned towards Kirishima. Kirishima, you've got an offer as well. Amajiki from the Big 3 wants to talk to you about something. He turned towards Yururika, Ajri and Yayorozu. Yururika, Yayorozu, Ajri, you've got a similar summons from Hado. Kairishima raised up. Amajiki, I wonder what he wants. Given the timing, it could be about the work-study program. Yururika's eyes widened. Whoa, that would be incredible. The redhead rubbed the back of his head slightly. I could wait until tomorrow to see what he wants. He thought aloud before casting aside those thoughts. Nope. I'm going over to the third-year dorms right now, he exclaimed as he began to leave the room. Ajri turned to Yururika. I don't think I can wait either, let's go with him. The 2 other girls got up and the 3 of them followed the spiky redhead. The dorms were located right across from the school with a road in between them. They were lined in order starting with 1A and ending at 3K. It was convenient when getting to the main campus as well as offering a spot for students to hang out. The 4 talked as they made their way to the third-year dorms. Yururika put a finger to her cheek. You think they'll introduce us to the heroes they work with? That would be the most favorable outcome. Only time will tell, Momo answered. Kirishima scrunched his face. I forget, which class are they in again? As I recall, Hado and Amajiki are in 3A and Togata's in 3B, Momo answered. Speaking of Togata, that guy was pretty awesome. He took most of us down without breaking a sweat. I guess it shows the difference real experience makes, Ajri commented. They're the top students at UA, naturally that makes them the students we should be chasing. I really like Togata. He could have just told us the importance of work studies but decided to show us instead. We should all take that lesson and strive to become stronger. Yururika shot her a smile. This coming from the girl who didn't get one shot. Like the rest of us. It wasn't as if it was an easy challenge for me, Yururika. If anything, I was at a disadvantage. With the control Togata has over his quirk, I couldn't touch him at all. Plus, I couldn't sense him until he was ready to attack. I had to rely solely on predicting where he would be and striking before he could. And as you saw, even though I was able to read him, his quirk still made him impossible to hit. He really is strong. said Yururika upon taking in her words. I thought Bakugo was gonna blow a blood vessel from not being able to get involved. It's his own fault he failed the licensing exam. The point of all that was to teach us the importance of work studies. Hopefully he learned something just from watching. Come on girls, ease up on Bakugo, the guy's had it rough lately. Kirishima spoke up in defense of the ash blonde. They all turned to him. Momo narrowed her cat-like eyes at the redhead, making him flinch slightly. I doubt that, Kirishima. He can be upset about falling behind everyone all he wants. At the end of the day, it's his own fault. If anything, he's getting what he deserves. His deplorable personality, actions and words are the reason for everything that's happened to him. Not to mention he's quirkist in every way. Ajiri turned to Kirishima. I didn't want to mention that because I have a bad history with that stuff, but you've got to admit Bakugo isn't evil, but he's not necessarily a good person. Kirishima took in their words. They weren't wrong, but he wasn't that bad. Look, I know he's a little messed up, but he gives me the confidence to be a better hero. He's confident and ambitious. Can we at least agree that those are good things? Momo looked him in the eyes. Those are admirable qualities, Kirishima. But they can become ugly and swell one's pride, which is the case with Bakugo. This is the same guy who ties a person's value to their quirk, and considers those with weak quirks to be some inferior form of humanity. Not to mention his thoughts on quirkless people. My boyfriend is quirkless, so I can speak on this because I've seen it. He treats and views them as less than garbage. If he inspires you, that's fine, Kirishima. But tell me, should a hero have such prejudices? Her onyx eyes pierced his red ones. He had no response for her. Though Bakugo was his friend, he couldn't defend him at this moment. A boy and girl ran past them. Come on, I want to see him before he takes off, a girl exclaimed, urging her friend to keep up. You're making too big a deal about this, the boy exclaimed. The group watched the pair run past them. They're off somewhere in a hurry, Yururika stated. Momo looked in the direction of the entrance. Not just them, I sense multiple people heading towards the front gate. Wonder what's up, said a bewildered Kirishima. Momo turned upon sensing a familiar presence. She spotted Kendo and her classmate Tokage leaving their dorm and heading towards them. Excuse me, Kendo, but what's getting everyone so excited? The redhead met her eyes, an excited expression on her face. You haven't heard? Once hanging out in front of the front gate, I think he's waiting for someone to bring him a guest pass. Momo's expression showed surprise at this. Once here? She asked aloud, genuinely surprised because Izuku didn't mention he was coming over. It's most likely hero-related business since he came in costume. Nice talking to you guys, but I gotta go, Kendo exclaimed as she bolted by them, causing Tokage to smile mischievously at her. Seeing her friend so eager to see and speak to her hero crush was truly adorable. Ajiri's eyes lit up a bit at this information. I had no idea one was on campus. Yururika faced the group. You guys want to go say hi? She asked with a bubbly smile, wanting to see the independent hero. Let's go, Momo happily exclaimed, basically deciding for everyone. Wait, weren't we just in the middle of something? Kirishima lightly protested. They asked for US Kirishima, so they'll be expecting us whenever, Momo insisted. Kirishima took a breath, accepting the course. Alright, let's go. The quartet made their way to the Udata barrier. The gate was open, allowing students to come and go from campus, and as they got closer they saw a crowd forming just outside it. They spotted students with their phones, taking pictures, talking, and right at the center of it was one. He was conversing with the students while taking pictures. Momo was slightly irked at seeing so many girls trying to pine for her boyfriend's attention, intentionally using their feminine charms to do so. Try adding that to your training and see what happens. You've got a cool, strong quirk, try giving it that extra kick. The goal should always be better than you were yesterday. The male student he was talking to pumped his fist. I'll give it a shot. 1. A feminine voice called out before he was wrapped in the arms of Nijiro Hato. He put his hands on her waist as she crossed her arms around his neck. It's been too long. How have you been? Are you working a case? Is that why you came to U.A? You said you'd help me train sometime. Are we doing that today? Should I give you my number to make things easier on you? Her questions came fast and excitedly. One chuckled lightly. He was still holding her, meeting her eyes and trying not to look down at her noticeably impressive chest. Bubbly as ever, Hato. Unfortunately, the only reason I'm here is that I need to speak with Mirio Togata. Her eyes lit up at these words. Mirio! He's one of my best friends, I can take you to him. I'd appreciate that. All Might should be bringing me a guest pass soon, he replied with a warm smile. Even though he's skinny now, he's such a cool guy. She smiled adorably at him. Ain't that the truth? He looked past the brunette in his arms and spotted a familiar redhead and greenette. Yo! Kendo, Tokage, been a while, hasn't it? Sorry for not checking in. How'd your licensing exam go? Kendo smiled happily at him, meeting his eyes. Everyone in Class B got their licenses. That's impressive. Did Class A achieve the same? No, only one person in Class A failed, Tokage answered. Now that I think about it, I heard you made an appearance at their exam. What was that all about? One smiled confidently at her. I was just passing over as all and saw someone in danger. While the life of a hero is dangerous, no one should die during an exam. I saved someone caught in Todoroki's mistake and left. That was a pretty busy day now that I think about it. Togake pointed a finger at him, smiling slyly. You should have come to see us. We got our first one over on Class A. Tokage, you're sounding like Monoma. Not a good thing. She brought a hand to her mouth in embarrassment. Sorry about that, it wasn't on purpose. You're fine. I'm not against helping you all improve some more. Kendo perked up. Speaking of improvement, I actually mastered that technique you taught me. I can use the Futai no Kiwami with my right hand now. I knew you'd get it. Let me guess, you got it the night before the licensing exam? One asked with a sly smile. Yes, but you're the one who told me I could get it in a week, and I did that so. Loving your confidence. Congratulations, Battle Fist, you're one step closer to being a pro hero. Kendo was pleased, blushing slightly from the praise. You seem to be having fun, one, Momo said, her eyes closed and an intimidating aura permeated from her. Nijire being in his arms as well as Kendo and Tokage being close to him made this a compromising situation. One spotted the quartet. Yayorozu, Yururika, Ajiri, Kirishima, how have you all been? Great, you look like you're having fun. Momo replied with a beautiful smile along with crossed arms and closed eyes. Though slight, one sensed her annoyance, specifically aimed at the brunette. Nothing wrong with a hero embracing his fans. Kirishima stretched to do a fist bump. One! How have you been, man? He gave him a fist bump. Can't complain, Kirishima, you know how it is. I heard most of you got your provisional licenses, congratulations. Thanks, man. None of us are settling though, we're all still aiming to be plus ultra, he exclaimed with a balled-up fist. That's what it's all about, Kirishima. Never resting on your current greatness and keeping your tools sharp is what'll make you a great hero. The redhead gave a sharp-toothy smile in acknowledgement of what he said. Gotcha. I wasn't expecting you to just pop up at U.A like this, one. Why'd you come here? Ajiri asked with a finger to her cheek. Nijire turned to the girls, answering for him. He said he had to talk to Mirio. It's probably something hero-related. It's exactly that, one answered with a smile. Brown eyes met blue as Yururika eyed Hato. Speaking of talk, we were actually coming to see you, Hato-senpai. Nijire broke off from one. She smiled bubbly at the three girls. Yeah, that's right. I really liked you three during Mirio's lesson. You girls want to do work studies, right? So I figure I'd take you to see the hero I work with and see if she'd take you on. The girls were happy as this is what they hoped she wanted them for. Wow! Thanks so much, senpai! Yururika happily exclaimed. We were hoping this was what you wanted to talk about, thank you. Ajiri added. We're grateful for this opportunity, Momo humbly said. One crossed his arms. You mentioned Togata giving them a lesson. I sense that's a very interesting story. He just showed us the difference work experience makes versus just being in class. Yururika answered. Indeed, I was impressed how he showed us instead of just telling us the importance of turning experience into power. I see. Well, I've worked with him once and even helped him train. I can definitely say he's benefited greatly from his work study. That being said, a chance to work alongside Ryukyu, that's definitely an opportunity you have to shoot your shot at. The girl's eyes widened. Whoa! You do your work study with Ryukyu? That's amazing! Yururika exclaimed. Nijire turned to one with a cute pouty face. One, I wanted it to be a surprise. She began playfully hitting him. That's why I didn't say it myself. One smiled. Sorry about that. His tone was casual as he took her playful jabs. This is perfect. I was actually going to try for Ryukyu's agency anyway, Momo stated. Nijire had stopped hitting one. Let me guess, Mirko said not to come back for a work study? Said the independent hero. You know her so well, Momo replied jokingly. One turned to his 3 o'clock, sensing a familiar presence making their way through the crowd before Small Mike came through in a fitting yellow suit. Everyone stopped when they saw the symbol of peace. Hey All Might, you got that pass for me? He raised it up. Yes sir, I do. Follow me. I asked young Togata to meet us in the teacher's lounge. Sweet, lead the way, sir. He followed All Might with the crowd following him and dispersing once they were back in the gate. The girls huddled together as they walked behind the duo. Hey, One, after you're done with Mirio you're gonna come back, right? Nijire asked excitedly. He chuckled lightly. Well, I wouldn't mind. But... He turned to All Might. How long is the pass good for All Might? It's a day pass. You're good until 9 o'clock tonight. He turned back to the brunette. Well, that gives me about 6 hours to play with. My talk with Togata shouldn't take long, and if I'm quick about it I should have time to come back here and hang out. She closed her eyes, smiling adorably at him. I'm gonna hold you to that. She turned back to the girls. Let's go say hi to Ryukyu. All the girls gave their affirmations while saying goodbye to One. One turned to his 10 o'clock and spotted Kendo and Tokage. Most people wouldn't hear what they were whispering about, but he could. Kendo! I'll try to slide through later. The redhead turned to him with a slight blush. I'll see you then. One and All Might entered the main campus building. They made their way through the halls with the independent hero receiving many surprised looks from teachers and students alike. As they went they talked casually about their goings-on, about Melissa and how she's adjusting to life as a UDATA student. Retirement still hasn't fully sunk into All Might yet, and he wanted to talk to him about the Tartarus break, which One agreed to after he was done with Mirio. All Might opens the door to the teacher's lounge and spots Mirio on a couch, and a cup of tea on the table in front of him. You are here! And I need to talk to you. Do you got this? One responded, matching his energy. Mirio caught his catchphrase. I sure do! How can I help you, One? All Might said it had something to do with Sir. Let me get straight to the point. I learned recently that the Sir Night-Eye agency has been investigating the Yakuza group, Shaiha Saikai. I'd like to team up and assist in the investigation. The reason I'm coming to you instead of straight to Night-Eye is because it's been made perfectly clear how he feels about me. I figured if you came with me it would be easier smoothing my request over. Mirio registered his words. Oh, so that's what you wanted to talk about. He gripped his chin. Well, it is obvious Sir isn't your biggest fan. Sorry, One, it may be my fault Night-Eye has such animosity towards you. All Might perked up. The independent hero turned to the skinny blonde. How so? Aside from being my former sidekick, he's a very big fan of mine. He has his view of the symbol of peace and expects young Togata to carry that torch. Then we have you, someone with not only the power, but also the heart to carry that mantle, and you didn't need me and my quirk to do it. One registered his words, getting a feel of what he meant. Wait, Night Eye hates me because he thinks I'll outshine Togata? I don't care about stuff like that. All Might crossed his arms. Tell that to Night Eye. Hey One, I'm not against taking you to see Sir, but if you want to get in on the case, how can you help? I have history with that group, I have a good idea of what their plans are. I believe I can speed up the process of taking them down. Alright, I'm convinced. Now you have to convince Sir. Night Eye is one of the most intimidating heroes out there, always ranking high on heroes who look like they should be villains. I'm gonna need to use all my charm for this one, he joked with a smile. There was suddenly a knock at the door, stopping their conversation. Come on in. All Might beckoned whoever was on the other side, most likely a student. The door opened and in walked Bakugo. His expression revealed sadness and his body language was calm. Hey All Might, do you have a minute? He asked upon seeing the skinny former hero. He turned to his left and saw Togata, and when his eyes landed on one, his calm demeanor faded as his anger instantly shot to the surface. What the hell are you doing here? Hello to you too, Bakugo. I needed to meet with Togata. Your timing is actually great, we just finished. He got up, turning to the older blonde. Shall we? Mirio smiled. Yeah, let's go. One turned to the steaming ash blonde. I heard about your provisional exam. He gave him a thumbs up with a bright smile. Keep your head up and I'm sure you'll pass next time. Bakugo, feeling patronized, grit his teeth. I don't need any goddamn advice from you. He scoffed, turning away from the independent hero. All Might kept a stern expression, sensing the tension between the two. Alright then, one said before leaving with Mirio. Why so hostile, young Bakugo? He saved you, didn't he? That bastard didn't save me, All Might. He's just a quirkless bastard. No matter how strong he is, that's all he'll ever be. All Might was slightly offended by that statement, as he himself was quirkless, but he couldn't tell him that. You shouldn't make such generalizations, young Bakugo. So why have you come here today? I'd be happy to help with any issue you have. Bakugo sat down on the couch, taking in the hero's words. He was quiet for a moment, trying to find his words. All Might, do you think I have what it takes to be a hero? All Might was surprised by these words. He's been observing all of his students since the year started, and out of all of them he's been the most concerned about Bakugo. Yes, the boy is talented, yes, he has a strong and flashy quirk with a wide range of ability, but that's literally all he has. In terms of a person, he's not the best, and his refusal to listen to anyone and do things his own way is what's led him to be the only first year to not get the provisional license. Bakugo has an inferiority complex that he's constantly fighting against, stemming from the pressure he puts on himself. It was normal for kids like him to receive praise for their abilities and feel special. But that environment hurts them more than it helps when actually faced with competition and situations where ability isn't all that matters. I'm surprised to hear that. You have the ability to be a capable hero, young man. But if I'm being honest, as a person, you're no hero. Bakugo's eyes widened at those words, a shot to the heart from hearing it from his hero. He lowered his head, his hair covered his eyes. So you're saying I'm weak? He asked lowly, afraid of the answer. It has nothing to do with being weak or strong, it has everything to do with the heart of a hero. That, at its core, is why you're behind the other first years. Aizawa told me the results of your exam. You basically failed because you refused to help people who were injured. They were just a bunch of dumb actors. The way you act in training reflects the way you'll act in a real situation. You have a strong desire for victory, and that isn't inherently bad, but you have no desire to help people. A hero should have a natural feel for helping others, but you, going all the way back to the entrance exam, it's never even crossed your mind that that could be important. Bakugo grit his teeth, feeling his embarrassment and the weight of All Might's words. I just want to be like you, which means being as strong as possible. But I can't, can I? Why do you think I became the symbol of peace, young Bakugo? Let me tell you, it had little to do with my strength. I had the ability, but more than that I wanted to save everyone I could reach. I wanted everyone to be able to smile and live their lives happily. Bakugo's expression became saddened, thinking of all the times he was a shitty person, how he was a shitty person, how no one smiled or was happy because of him. Young Bakugo, let me tell you something. What's said about every other hero, it's that their body moved before they ever had a chance to think, all to save someone. Heroic instincts are something that some people just have. But maybe you could learn. Striving for victory, and caring about people, both those things are important for a hero. You said you wanted to be like me, but if you want a great, current example, look at one. Bakugo grit his teeth while gripping his knee at the mention of the independent hero. Why did you have to bring up that idiot? Tears welling in his eyes, threatening to fall as his voice became shaky. Because he is a great example. Young Bakugo, can I be honest with you for a moment? His head still lowered and his head lowered. Sure. I failed at a lot of things as the symbol of peace, but I feel wholeheartedly one is a hero that can be the symbol to people that I never was. A quirkless hero who strived to prove he could save others, and did that and then some. My power may have left me, but the lessons I wasn't able to teach despite being a symbol, one will surely be able to. So, what I'm trying to say is, stop holding on to a false perception of me, and look at one. He taught me a lot, and reminded me of many things I forgot. Bakugo took in his words, his eyes still covered behind his hair. That's not what I wanted to hear, he said before standing up. He brought a hand to his face. I'm out of here. Thanks for nothing, All Might. He walked to the door and grabbed the knob. Young Bakugo? A hero's heart often matters more than what they can do. The blonde gripped the doorknob, gritting his teeth as he's heard those words from Deku, Ponytail, and now All Might. I'll think about it. I'm still gonna be the #1 hero. You should think about why you want that title. Being the top hero isn't just about being the strongest, and it means more than you know. All Might's words hit him as he left the room. The former pro leaned back in his chair. Being a teacher is harder than I thought. Sir Night Eye Agency. After leaving the Udata grounds, one put Mirio on his back and ran all the way to the agency, arriving there in a few seconds. After letting the older boy off his back, one scooped out the building. It was a nice-looking agency. It was a large, 5-storied building with windows that lined each floor facing the street. He already knew of Night Eye as well as his 2 sidekicks Bubble Girl and Centipeder. So this is the place, nice location. I know, right? Trust me, it's even better on the inside, Mirio stated as he stepped forward with the hero following him. They entered and the first floor was a vast lobby area with a spiral staircase. One could sense 2 other people in this building at the moment. One of the first things he noticed was the clean office smell here. The 2 began to ascend the steps instead of taking the elevator. So, Togata, what's it like working with Night Eye? Your personalities seem like polar opposites. Is that ever problematic? Mirio rubbed the back of his head. No, actually Sir asked for me by name after I got my provisional license. He may be a strict teacher, but he can be a really nice and caring guy. Actually, Sir enjoys laughter. One raised a brow behind his cowl. Really? I know it's hard to believe, but it's true. It's really ironic once you stop and think about it. Noted. They made it to the top of the stairs. I can't guarantee Sir will listen to you or even like you, but you may be able to score some brownie points here if you can make him laugh. Laugh, huh? He thought while giving a nod of acknowledgement. His eyes shifted towards the door to Night Eye's office. He began to hear hectic laughter coming from inside. His interest peaked given everything Togata had just said. They opened the door, and one's expression became a mix of shock and confusion. Horizontally strapped to a contraption on wheels was Bubble Girl, laughing her head off as the machine and Sir Night Eye tickled her with a feather. Night Eye turned towards the door, and his usual intimidating expression multiplied, his yellow eyes practically glowing when they landed on the independent hero. He met his gaze with a smile. Hello, Night Eye. Didn't mean to ruin your punishment game. I assume Bubble Girl forgot to refill the water for the coffee maker again. He joked, the blue woman's laughter and pleading for mercy being the only sound amidst the silence between them. He stopped Bubble Girl's tickling and eyed the hero. He was about to give a response when the hero spoke upon scanning the room. Whoa! I knew you were the man's former sidekick, but I had no idea you were such an All Might fan. He took a couple steps, mouth agape, in awe at all this exclusive All Might gear. Every volume of the All Might comics. The exclusive every age poster. He turned to them as he pointed at the poster. I have this same poster. He happily was getting irritated while Mirio smiled pleasantly at the hero's nerding out. One loudly gasped. Could it be? He walked to the other side of the room. The 10th year anniversary poster that was never on sale to the public. He turned to Night Eye. That favoritism runs deep. Huh, Night Eye? What are you doing here, one? His voice was calm but eyes showed clear annoyance. His smile continued to shine. Why so serious? This is a pleasant, professional, work-related visit. Plus, outside of cons, I never see this much exclusive All Might gear in one spot. Come on, let me have this. He clapped his hands together in a plea for acceptance. Night Eye met eyes with his work-study student, seeing right through his calm, jovial demeanor. Did you bring him here, Mirio? The blonde smiled, rubbing the back of his head. Well, technically he brought me here. He found out about our case and wanted to help us out. The man's expression deepened, clearly not in the mood to indulge one. Night Eye assessed the situation. One was here and he wanted to talk about their case. He shouldn't even know what they're working on. How did you obtain your information? You're not privy to knowing what pros are working on. I've crossed paths with Shai Hasaikai before. In tech, and I gained a lot of information from an undercover case we worked on a few months back. I was always planning to take them down when the time came, and it seems that time is now. Night Eye's expression didn't change. Look, I get you don't like me. And I can just scratch you off as someone who could have been a hero friend, but they could do a lot of damage if they're not taken care of. So, for the sake of peace, let's put our differences to the side and team up just this once. The pro registered his words. As he eyed the other hero, Mirio went around him and freed Bubble Girl from her restraints. Bubble Girl, could you leave the room for a moment? The woman got her nerves under control. Yes, sir. The sidekick left the room, leaving the three men to talk. Night Eye got behind his desk, his fingers pressed together as he decided his next words. For the moment, I'll overlook how you learned about our secret investigation. But why would you come to help us? You're infamous for doing things on your own and playing by your own rules. When I heard you were investigating the Hasaikai, I figured why not throw my aura in the water and help this thing flow smoothly. Also, why are you making that sound so negative? And I don't do everything on my own. I've always had help in some capacity. I'll have a sidekick after all. The room went quiet. Mirio looked between the green-haired man and the green-clad hero. Leave. The pro's voice was stern and his tone calm. Really? I could probably count all the words I've said since I've been here. Why are you throwing me out? He tried to keep a jovial tone, but he was becoming serious. Because I don't approve of this, or you. He started stamping his stamp on the desk. That's a bit harsh. Look, I spoke with All Might earlier, and he said you hate me largely because you think I'll outshine this one. He cocked his head towards Mirio. Same thing I told him. I don't care or think about any of that stuff. All I want and have ever wanted is to be a hero. He was irked by those words. The light refracted off Night Eye's glasses, hiding his eyes. You've said that before? He turned to Mirio. Mirio is All Might's successor. He's the inheritor of One for All. All Might use strength and humor to bring joy to people and relieve them of their fear of criminals. He's gone now. And in the midst of the chaos, who is everyone looking to take his place? The former vigilante turned independent hero. A quirkless hero at that. A quirkless hero who defeated the greatest evil All Might couldn't put away, and it wasn't the power passed down through generations that made it happen. No disrespect, but is there a point to this? What exactly are you, one? I'm merely a quirkless person who wanted to be a hero, and I became one. Is it really that hard to believe you can be strong just from training? And before you say something like, I myself am in peak condition, just know you didn't train the way I did. So from my perspective, your idea of peak physique is pretty average. The room went deathly quiet, Mirio glancing between one and his mentor, and he could sense his growing animosity. He's inherited something not only special, but important, from All Might. A small part of him felt bad because in a way he was the reason for this. Despite all the effort he's made with One for All, one is able to do things in a way even All Might couldn't. He's been accepted by society not only for his power, but his heart and resolve to help others no matter the situation. The day he saved the suicidal jumper is something that will always stick with him. It got him wondering of how would he have handled that. One was able to save her because he understood and empathized with her. Even with all his personal struggles, he was unsure if he could have saved her in the same way. You're so full of yourself. Nightai broke the silence. The symbol of peace is gone, and the people are looking for dazzling light to shine amidst the chaos that is to come. And you are not that light. One met his gaze, unflinching. The brighter the light, the darker the shadow. You should be careful in trying so adamantly to have Togata replace All Might, Nightai. You fool. Do you have any idea what the symbol of peace is? Let alone the importance of its function. The symbol of peace, in essence, is a deterrent to villains. One person who can scare all the bad guys into not doing bad things. One person that everyone can look to for peace and comfort. I won't lie, when I was a kid I thought it was pretty cool. Then I realized the light casted by that symbol didn't cover people like me, and I was very much in the shadow it casted. I'll tell you the same thing I told All Might. He may have made people feel safe, but his biggest failure as a symbol was not teaching people how to be kind, to be good to one another. And while he's a genuinely good person, that doesn't change the fact that there are people who don't take comfort in the symbol who should have. Fighting for the peace and salvation of everyone may not be fashionable or even realistic, but everyone matters. And that's something All Might didn't know, and it took him becoming quirkless again to realize it. Night Eye slammed his hand on the table. Hush, boy. You don't know All Might's struggles, nor the sacrifices he's had to make so others could have their happiness. He glared daggers at One. One lowered his head for a moment. You know, the day I met All Might is one of the happiest and worst days of my life. It was before I became a vigilante, and I met my hero for the first time. I wanted to know his opinion on if someone who didn't have a quirk could be a hero if they trained hard enough. He told me to give up and find a new career goal. It was never a job to me, it was who I was. It tore me apart. The hero I looked up to for so long didn't understand or acknowledge me, nor did he try. He eyed the future sight hero. I resented him for a long time for that. It deeply pained and saddened me. After he retired, we had a heart-to-heart, and I was able to fully let it go. What's your point? Night Eye asked, practically demanding an answer. My point is, I'm a product of the flaws in the symbol of peace ideology. Nothing wrong with trying to maintain peace, but it'd be good for everyone to be covered in that blanket. Night Eye lowered his head, his body practically trembling, seemingly from anger. You don't understand at all, he said lowly. The symbol is gone. Our society is at a critical junction, and that hole needs to be filled by someone just as bright, just as capable, and just as powerful. You're free to do what you want, One, but you could never mean to others what All Might did. One sighed. He originally came here to help with their case, but this was clearly a waste of time. Night Eye was such a fan of All Might he was stuck in things needing to remain the same, hence him making Togata into All Might 2.0. It was a little disappointing that he felt that way, but there was nothing he could do. I didn't come here to argue with you, Night Eye, I came to help. But this was clearly a waste. At least All Might acknowledges he was wrong about a lot of things. He turned to Mirio. Good luck, Togata. I want to impart this much knowledge to you. Just because you have power doesn't mean you can do everything on your own, nor does it mean you should. To help the world you have to be aware of it, the light and the shadows. He turned and made his way to the door. He opened it, stopping before leaving. Quirk erasing bullets, that's what they're doing. They've been selling them for months, and I recently found out they made contact with the League of Villains. Thought you would like to know. He left the room, closing the door behind him and making his way back to the spiral stairs. The two in the room stayed in silence for a moment. Sir? Mirio looked to his mentor. Forget about it, Mirio. His tone urged the young hero to drop it, but the independent hero's words were still very much in his thoughts. One made his way down the staircase. He shot a glance at Bubble Girl, who could sense his sadness. She didn't say a word to him as he walked past her. He made it down the staircase and was about to exit the building. Wow! Night Eye's hate boner for you is bigger than I could have ever imagined, Intex said into his cowl. It's unfortunate, but understandable, he said aloud. True, but he's holding on to a faulty ideal. He's All Might's former sidekick, training someone to be the hero All Might was. You saw the room, didn't you? It was filled wall to wall with All Might gear, even the 10th anniversary poster that wasn't on sale to the public. If I had to guess, All Might gave him that. So it's him being a super All Might fanboy that drives his animosity. Interesting. It is understandable. He was there, right next to the symbol, and saw what it meant and how important it was. One sighed. Oh well, it's not like everyone will like me. Haven't forgotten that from my vigilante days. Good to know. I'd hate to see you crumble just because some people won't like you even though you're legal now. One raised a brow behind his cowl. 2 words, Ken Katakuri. Speaking of him, I didn't want to mention it, but he and his people have been hounding for an interview just like you did with Fujioka. He's just itching for a chance to tear me down. I know, which is why we're not entertaining setting that up. One gripped his chin. Actually, I wouldn't mind it. Seriously? Just hear me out for a moment. If I did this, I could counter every argument he has against me. And let's be honest, most people listen to his radio show to tune in to his nonsense. Off the record, I'm sure he slams me for the ratings. Negativity always makes the biggest headlines. Intex scratched his nose. True, but let's double back to this before we decide on anything. By the way, have you seen that video? The one of Gentle Criminal during the Tartarus break. Yeah, I saw it. I'm still unsure how they got into the prison, let alone got away. The video was posted online to Gentle's webpage a few days ago, and it was gaining a lot of traction. The video began with them infiltrating the prison and freeing Lady Nagant. It mainly focused on what Gentle was doing while getting shots of Tachibana and Stain. It showed how Gentle flashily stopped guards and villains from chasing them. It showed their escape up until he confronted them. Gentle performed some final theatrics on the wall before the video ended. So you're gonna pay him a visit, right? His midget sidekick broke into my system. Fairly impressive. One smirked confidently. That's my next stop. I haven't even answered any requests today. Plus he has information on Tachibana Senpai. See, we need to have a little talk. Well, I tracked them a few days ago. You just gotta go see them. On it. Stay vigilant, Intech, he said before disappearing in a flash of speed. Apartment of Danjuro Tabita. Danjuro Tabita, aka Gentle Criminal, sat on his couch sipping some tea. He was quite proud of himself. He had a hand in pulling off one of, if not the greatest caper of all time. He not only broke in and out of Tartarus but was able to free a prisoner. La Brava was there to record the whole thing and his video was doing numbers. Many people were surprised by his action, thoroughly impressed with him. When Tachibana and Satsuki came knocking on their door, he wasn't sure what to expect, but he was happy with the end result. He's becoming more famous than he has ever been, and he was enjoying every minute of it. Naomi Iba, aka La Brava, was at the computer, happy as can be with the rise in views and comments to Gentle's latest video. Look, Gentle! The latest video just hit over 2 million views. Gentle gestured to her. Wonderful, my dear! The people are finally seeing my greatness. She was thrilled by his antics. You're so cool, Gentle! He chuckled happily, pleased with himself. This is only the beginning, La Brava. Soon everyone will know the name, Gentle Criminal. And when that happens, everyone will dash. La Brava's ecstatic praise ended when there was a knock at the door. Gentle properly placed his teacup on a plate and stood up. I wonder who that could be. He went to the door, cautious as to who it could be. There was another knock at the door. He peeped through the door hole and saw no one. That wasn't unusual, his guest was probably short like La Brava. He opened the door only to see no one standing outside. He peered down the hall, for a moment thinking this was some kid's prank. Gentle Criminal, I presume. The sudden strong voice that came out of nowhere startled the villain, almost making him fall back. His blue eyes scanned the doorway, looking for anyone who could have spoken just now but found nothing. Who said that? I did. The voice responded, once again out of nowhere, startling him. But this time it sounded as if the person it belonged to were right in front of him. Before Gentle could determine his next course of action, out of thin air appeared the form of one, standing confidently on his doorstep. His eyes widened at seeing the infamous independent hero. Quickly getting back inside, he slammed the door before turning to his partner. La Brava! We must FLE dash. The words never fully left his lips as they caught in his throat. Standing in front of him, with his back to him, was one. His speed! He was able to enter before I could close the door. He thought as one began to walk into his living room. There's no running from this hero. That's why Tachibana needed him distracted. We were truly lucky the other night. One stepped into the living room. He locked eyes with La Brava, who looked at him fearfully, many thoughts racing through her mind, the biggest of which was that he was here to arrest her and Gentle. Being separated was scarier than anything he could do to them physically. Such a nice home you have here, a very proper decor. The hero complimented the entire design of the apartment. She kept an eye on him as the hero scanned the room, getting a feel for his surroundings. Gentle finally found his words. 1. Welcome to my humble abode. Would you like some tea? I recently made a pot. It's still warm and fresh. The hero turned to face him. His expression and body language were both calm. That sounds lovely. I would love a cup. Be with you in a moment, sir, he said before heading to the kitchen. One calmly sat on the couch. He noted the half-drunk cup already on the table. La Brava kept looking at him, like a cat ready to pounce on her prey. He gave her a warm, charming smile to help ease the tension. I take it you're Manami Aiba? So what if I am? You impressed a lot of people the other day. Not just anyone can get in and bring down the security system at Tartarus. I'm curious, did you take it down temporarily on purpose or because you couldn't fully take it over? She hid the lower part of her face behind her chair, turning her eyes away from him. I shut it down temporarily, but whether I could have taken full control, I don't know. I see. You're a talented young woman. If you ever get tired of playing villain henchman, I'm sure there's a successful career for you in internet security. Consider that an offer from the people you've impressed. She stopped hiding her face and looked him in the eyes. I'm afraid I'm not interested in things like that. All I want is to help my Gentle achieve his dream. One took in her words. He could see her eyes were full of love and there was no convincing her. All right then. Gentle came into the living room with the demeanor of a server at a cafe. Your tea, sir. The hero took the plate with the cup on top. He held the plate in his left while he took the cup into his right. He saw that it was black tea. He recognized the scent. Earl Grey black tea. A fine choice, thank you. Gentle was surprised to see he was able to recognize the tea just from its look and scent. He was a tea connoisseur, and he's never met anyone else like him in this regard. It excited him. Oh, you know your tea. I'd have never expected that of you, one. The hero took a sip. The flavor was just as he expected. Since he met her, Momo has put him on to the sweet, calming world of tea. Being the tea connoisseur she is, it's basically her solution to every stressful problem. My girlfriend is a tea connoisseur. She's introduced me to the world of tea. It's quite pleasant, full of calming scents and flavors. He chuckled a bit at a memory. Whenever I go over to her house, she usually puts on a pot of tea. I was never the biggest tea drinker, but I didn't mind it. Actually, one time I joked about how I was sick of tea. She said, "Sick of tea? That's like being sick of breathing." Gentle relaxed a bit, chuckling, pleased by hearing someone talk about tea. Your girlfriend sounds like a wise woman. She is truly remarkable, he said as he took another sip. Pleasant as always. Thank you, Gentle, I needed that. Good tea is something that should be shared indiscriminately, he said, standing straight, smiling with his eyes closed. Good to know. He put the cup on the plate, then on the table. As enjoyable as this tea is, let's not pretend there's not an elephant in the room. Both villains tense back up, ready for a fight but unsure of how to handle this threat. Let me be clear and straight to the point. I don't care whatsoever about the individual crimes you both committed the other day. As a matter of fact, I'm willing to look the other way and just walk out of here. On one condition. And that would be? Gentle asked. Information. Tell me everything you know about where I can find Taki, Tachibana, and Stain, on top of what they're planning now. Both villains were surprised by these words. This hero was giving them an out in exchange for information. Gentle was unsure of how to proceed. On one hand, Tachibana was the reason for his sudden recognition and views online. On the other, he couldn't answer how to find her. He and La Brava were blindfolded when they were taken to her hideout, and when they left her base they were just the same. They could tell about the submarine and the lab, but that's not exactly a location, and he wasn't sure if one would be comfortable with that. We don't know where she is, La Brava exclaimed, breaking the silence and Gentle's thoughts. One turned to her, his features calm. Talk. We were blindfolded going to and from her hideout. We don't know where she is, but we do know she has a submarine. His eyes narrowed behind his cowl. A sub? So that explains how they got to the prison and escaped undetected. Once they were underwater, I couldn't sense them. You had to have seen her base. Any landmarks or anything that hinted as to where they were? No, nothing like that. One. Gentle spoke up. Tachibana enlisted us upon learning about La Brava's skills. There was no camaraderie for us. They were perfectly fine with leaving us if we couldn't keep up. She didn't share any particulars with us, but Tachibana said something about revealing the truth and creating a world where only true heroes can thrive. I got the impression she wanted to destroy something, or someone, but I couldn't tell what, La Brava added. One crossed his arms, taking in all that they said. She recruited them just to do a job. They weren't allies, so naturally they wouldn't know too much. The hero sighed. What about Stain? Gentle looked at him. I actually did overhear that unsavory fellow's intentions. He said he was going to cull the biggest faker. He said it was such hatred and venom it was startling. One gripped his chin. The biggest faker. Huh. Could it be another celebrity hero? Who aside from her fits that kind of bill? MT Lady maybe? No, given his M.O. and her attitude he'd have gone after her long since before now. He paused his thoughts for a moment. Wait a minute. Gentle, did he say where he was going? A city or a region maybe? Gentle made a thoughtful expression. I can't recall. Muzurifu. La Brava spoke up. What? I heard him speaking to that Tsutsumi person and saying his next target is in Muzurifu. One stood up. You're sure? He asked her sternly, leaving no room for her to be joking or misunderstood. Yeah, I know what I heard. I know exactly who he's after. He thought before picking up his cup and finishing his tea. Thanks for the tea, and have a good day. He left the two in the living room but stopped at the door with his back to them. A wave of pressure passed over them, terrifying them both. Fair warning, this is your only freebie. I'm still not entirely sure what you do with your crime video thing, but know if I catch you doing something you shouldn't be, I'm taking you both to jail. Are we clear? He asked, his wave of power aura hammering home his threat. Yes, sir. They both squealed in unison. The hero left the apartment, allowing both villains to release a sigh of relief. His visit was surprisingly more peaceful than they expected. They had given him the information he needed and wouldn't arrest them for the time being, but now that he was gone, it was time to go back to planning. An unassuming warehouse was surrounded by several heroes. Inside, Trigger along with methamphetamines were being made and distributed by a local criminal group. Ryukyu Agency along with the police, Mirko and One, Shishido and Xless along with their sidekicks, surrounded the warehouse. It was almost go time and everyone was ready for Xless, who was with Ryukyu, to give the signal. There was a clear plan and execution was the key here. The goal was to get the bosses whom they were certain were inside. One would make sure to cut off their escape route, and even if they did get to it, they wouldn't get far. One was in the back of the building with Mirko. They watched the trucks in the loading dock, both rearing to go. They're really taking their sweet time with this one, the rabbit woman commented as they waited. It takes everyone to make things go right. I'm guessing everyone isn't in place. We should get the signal any minute now. Mirko lowly groaned. This is why I hate team-ups. It always has to be a process. One smiled unconcernedly at her. Patience is a virtue. Static came in through the headpieces Ryukyu had handed out to everyone. Her voice came through. Everyone, the police have the entire warehouse boxed in. No one gets out. Be ready on my signal. You think the intel they gave us was good? Mirko asked, turning and looking up towards the mountain behind them. Villains who traffic drugs are by far the most creative, and it's not my first time dealing with a group that has their own plane. I think I want to hear about that later. It's a long, dark story that involves human trafficking and drug mules. Not one of my more pleasant cases. One admitted, not very fond of that particular case. A beam of red light shot into the air. It came from Xless, ending their conversation as this was the signal. About time! Catch up with you later! The rabbit hero exclaimed before she bolted from the trees, over the remaining police line and entering the building through the loading dock. There she goes. He turned behind him, looking up the mountain. Time for me to do my part. He leaped from the branch he was standing on and flew upward using Skywalk. Ryukyu Agency, the police and the other heroes raided the warehouse. Their goal was to apprehend the owner of this company. This was actually a black company, and it was actually a security guard hero who tipped off Ryukyu of the illegal happenings inside. The lead investigator ran alongside the heroes, waving a warrant in front of him for all to see. This location is now under investigation for the manufacture and distribution of illegal drugs. Chaos broke out when they made it onto the work floor. The evidence was clear as day. Workers began to panic, as most of them didn't want to be here. Some of them bolted for the nearest exits, while others, who were most likely profiting greatly from this, tried to engage the heroes only to be swiftly taken down. Operations had stopped with most of the workers dropping what they were doing and getting on the floor. Xless stared down the workers. I'll keep watch here, you keep going, he told the other heroes. Ryukyu and Nijire left while several police stayed with him. Everyone, we know the situation involving this company. Most of you are not in any legal trouble, just stay down until we sort this out, he said before locking eyes with a white-haired young man on the far end of the building. He wasn't on the ground and had a look that showed he was very calm. A man in a light blue shirt suddenly shot up. The hero almost blasted him with his quirk but noticed the man had his hands up. Look, I didn't want to be here, Mr. Hero. They threatened to kill my family if I ever said anything about the dash. Xless fired a laser towards the man. It went behind him, destroying the white projectiles that mirrored bullets. The hero spotted the same white-haired man, his fingers extended. Whatever he fired was intended to kill and silence the man who just sat up. Get down, Xless ordered, eyes still on the white-haired man who began walking towards them. He had vivid green eyes, red dots above his eyebrows. Wearing a gray shirt with black jeans and boots, he had a slender build and his presence made it evident that he was a seasoned killer. I take it you won't be going peacefully. I can't allow you to ruin our operation, he said coldly before raising his hand. Slowly a blade made of bone protruded from his hand, turning his bones into weapons. This is Hon Kimimaro. It's a good thing I read the intel on this guy. The hero fired a blast at the other man who swiftly dodged. This became a volley of shots that Kimimaro all dodged, shortening the distance between them with each evasive maneuver. This guy is insane, Xless thought before his target disappeared in a flash of speed. The next thing he knew, pain shot through his body. He saw splatters of blood from a diagonal slash to his stomach. He instinctively leaned back before the blade hit, lowering the damage and avoiding a fatal hit. The white-haired guard kept a calm, unconcerned expression. You managed to avoid that. But he spun, delivering a kick to the hero's chest that broke several of his ribs before sending him crashing into the wall behind him. The police opened fire with the bone-bladed man dodging them with the grace of a god. The rare bullets that did hit him merely bounced off his bone-hardened skin. Blade in hand, he began to cut down the police one by one, his bone sword effortlessly slicing through their body armor. The screams of the police filled the warehouse, the workers paralyzed with fear from the merciless slaughter. Kimimaro's eyes drifted to the right, having caught a flash of white bolting towards him. He swung his sword just as a strong foot connected with his hand, stopping it before he received a brutal kick to the face. He went flying through 2 walls before ending up outside. He skid before he was able to stop himself. He paid no mind to the police pointing guns to his back and focused on what hit him. Where he previously stood was the rabbit hero Mirko. Mirko, she's faster than I expected. If I hadn't put up a layer of bone at that moment, she'd have cracked the right side of my head with ease. I have to keep on my toes with this hero, he thought as he eyed the rabbit hero. Mirko's fiery smile shined as she eyed her opponent. So you're the muscle around here? I was hoping for a fight that would be worth my time. Kimimaro fully stood up. You should be careful about being enthusiastic about such things, Mirko. You'll end up biting off more than you can chew. Thanks for the advice, but I really doubt it. The two rushed at each other, becoming a blur of kicks and sword swings. The hero had the advantage, pummeling the guard with brutal kicks that slowly weakened his defenses. Mirko had gotten close. He swung at her as several bone spikes stuck out from his arm, narrowly missing her flesh. She kicked the bone sword out of his hand. She spun to land a kick to his chest only for her foot to be stopped by bones protruding from his ribcage. Her kick cracked them, but they held strong. Kimimaro took this chance to fire bone bullets at her. Mirko quickly freed herself, avoiding the shots and getting some distance. Those bones are as tough as steel. And on top of that, he can freely sprout them from his body. It makes close combat complicated, that's for sure. She smiled confidently as she processed the situation. Oh well. If I can't get around them, then I'm just gonna have to break them. She rushed towards her enemy, faster than he could see, and landed a spin kick to his left elbow, breaking it and making his arm now useless. Kimimaro grit his teeth in pain. Damn. She's still able to move faster than I thought. She ruined my arm. I can heal the bone instantly, but the joints and ligaments are another story. I can't use it anymore. And my quirk's almost at its limit. His thoughts were all over, desperately thinking of a way to quickly dispatch this hero and help his leader. Then he remembered. My boss needs me. I don't have time to waste with you, Mirko, he said, clearly annoyed as he reached into his right pocket with his good hand, pulling out a vial of trigger. The rabbit hero's eyes widened when seeing the vial. Before she could react, he was injecting himself with the drug. Damn. Should have figured he had trigger on him. This just got more complicated, she thought as she eyed her opponent, whose skin was darkening. Not only that, his body seemed to mutate as he began to grow a large tail. His skin became dark gray, gaining thick black eyebrows, sharp claws, yellow eyes, black marks under his eyes, 6 bones protruding from his back and sharp bones lining his spine and tail. He looked like a demonic dinosaur. What the hell? A shocked Mirko thought. I know trigger affects every quirk differently, but what the hell were they working on? She didn't have time to linger in her thoughts as he rushed towards her, aiming to skewer her with the bones on his back. Shifting to the left, she avoided the bone, grabbing it and using it as a vault to flip over him. As she did this, Kimimaro dipped, bringing up his tail and landing a brutal slap on her, sending her tumbling across the ground. Kimimaro stared down the injured hero, who had a noticeable tear in the right side of her costume along with some blood exiting from the wound. Down after one hit? You disappoint, Mirko. Mirko stopped bleeding, standing up and faced her foe. Oh please. If one hit took me out, I'd happily die in that situation. But you're not that good, are you? We'll see. Focusing his quirk, spiky bone began to stick up from the base of his spine. Once enough had come out, he firmly grasped it and ripped it out, revealing a spiky bone-like whip. The two kept eye contact, Kimimaro stoic with Mirko shocked but appearing stern. His spine! How the hell is that possible? Her surprise quickly faded and was replaced with excitement. This just got a new level of exciting. Kimimaro swung his spine whip at the hero, who nimbly dodged. The two clashed again, continuing their fight. Ryukyu and Nijire-chan had made it into the management office. It was a 2-floor section of the warehouse. Many have stood in their way to stop them but were easily defeated. The heroes, along with several police, made it to the office of the company owner, Shinjiro Hibi. They broke the door into the office, only to find it empty. He's not here, one of the police stated. We know he came in today, he couldn't have just slipped out, Nijire commented. He did, but we may not have needed to see him for him to get out of here, Ryukyu said before bolting past the desk. She noticed the hollow floor below it, and with one punch shattered it, falling beneath. She fell 3 meters into a dimly lit bunker that led to who knows where. He must have taken this the moment he heard the commotion. Ryukyu! Most of our forces in the building are down. Mirko is fighting Kimimaro and it's ended up outside, an officer informed her. Nijire-chan! Go help her, the rest of you get the employees to safety. I'll deal with Hibi. She looked up the path of the bunker, a good idea of where it came out but still unsure. He has no idea he's walking into a trap. She began sprinting down the bunker, keeping an eye out for traps and determined to bring down Hibi's operation. Almost toward the end of the bunker, Shinjiro Hibi ran to freedom. He knew the heroes would come for him at some point, and thankfully he had Kimimaro to keep them busy for a while, or he may not have slipped into his bunker before the heroes came. The man was a snake in every sense, with his pale skin, long black hair, golden eyes with slitted pupils and fawn-like teeth, wearing a black business suit. This wasn't the first time he was nearly brought down, and it certainly wouldn't be the last. They simply don't make heroes like they used to. If you're coming to arrest someone, it's a good idea not to surround their location with cops and burst in. Then again, most villains are stupid, so I can blame them, the Snake Man thought. He was almost to the bunker's exit. It was up the mountain where a plane and a runway were full of product and waiting for him. Nice try, Ryukyu, but no one is bringing down Shinjiro Hibi, he thought as he burst through the exiting door. He stepped into the light, ready to get away. The tunnel exit led to a shaft and hangar bay where a plane was waiting for him. Upon exiting, he bolted for his escape, ready to get away when his heart sank. All around him, his personally trained crew were on the floor, unconscious and beaten. The plane wasn't even running, and leaning against it with a sly, confident smile was the independent hero one. Shinjiro Hibi, I assume. You sure took your sweet time getting here. Sorry about your beat-up crew here. When I showed up, they chose violence, and you know what they say. Violence only begets more violence. I digress, it's over. Your drug operation is done, so just go quietly. Whatever ambitions you had ends here. The pale-skinned man grit his teeth, angry at this interference. Even if his crew was down, all he had to do was get to the plane. He didn't need them to fly it. But going through one, someone who casually destroys meteors, was easier said than done. But still, his pride wouldn't let him give up. He's creative, a lucrative operation here. Going to prison and starting back at zero wasn't an option. He became angrier at the seemingly impossible task of getting out of this. Fool! There is no stopping my ambition! He roared as his neck stretched and shot towards the hero, disturbing him slightly but not threatening him in the slightest. Hebe was surprised that one made no effort to dodge or avoid him. He was a snake, with a bite from him stronger than a black mamba. One stood firm as the snake headed towards him, teeth striking at his neck. To the snake man's shock, his teeth shattered against his flesh. He grimaced in pain as he retracted his neck, gripping his mouth from his now tattered fangs. What the hell? His skin was like solid steel. As he was engrossed in his pain, he felt a grip on his neck. One had snatched him off the ground faster than he could see. Give up, it's over, one stated, only for the man's body to feel strange in his grasp, and the next moment, he was holding a former skin. Hebe had shed his skin and laid on the floor covered in a strange liquid, his teeth back to normal and seemingly still in control. One tossed the former skin to the side. That's disturbing. He eyed the snake man who was still urging for a fight. So you're still determined to do this? I told you already, there's no stopping my ambition. Your biggest warehouse is under siege from the law. We know everything you've been doing and you're definitely going to jail. I find it strange how you're still so confident. Because I still hold all the cards, one. He gripped his stomach, and to the hero's disgust he saw a snake sprout from his mouth. To his added shock, a double-edged sword sprouted from the mouth of the snake. He caught the sword after the snake spit it out. It's always good to have these things handy, Hebe said slyly. Well, when it's in a snake in your stomach, it's not really going anywhere, is it? No. Another reason why I truly love my quirk, he exclaimed as he rushed towards the hero. One met the blade with a chop, stopping the blade. So the rumors are true, your hand is like a sword. He began furiously swinging at the hero only for his right hand to counter every blow. Your swordsmanship is impressive. I had no idea Mutoria could be so strong. One backflipped and got some distance. I'm a master of Mutoria, and a sword in the hands of a master is a deadly weapon. Though in my case, my sword is my hand. Hebe took a stance for Aijutsu. Interesting, let's see whose style is superior. So a battle of quick draw, huh? I don't get them too often, I accept, he exclaimed as he took a stance for Batojutsu with his right hand. There was a moment of pause as the two assessed each other, both of their stances flawless. There was a breeze that passed through the hangar as the two men prepared to engage each other. In a flash of speed they struck. There was a sound of a clash with them appearing on opposite sides of each other. Hebe extended his arm that held his sword while one extended his hand. There was a long, palpable silence. The silence was ended by the sound of metal crashing on the floor. Half of Hebe's sword had pierced the ground. The snake man made no sound as he fell forward unconscious from the hit of one's blade-like hand. One turned and faced his defeated enemy. Aye, sword, flashy slash. Ryukyu showed up shortly after, and the two detained everyone at the scene. They checked with Mirko and Nijire, who managed to beat Kimimaro, who suddenly died of an unknown disease before he could land a killing blow on Nijire. The police collected testimonies of the employees that nailed Hebe to the wall. On top of that, those who aided in his villainy were also indicted. All of the employees who wanted no part of the illegal activity were granted immunity for their cooperation. It didn't take the police long to round up who was guilty and who was innocent. Mirko and Ryukyu watched as the police did the cleanup. Well, that's another case in the books. He turned to the Dragoon hero. Thank you for inviting me, Ryukyu. We did good work today. It's no problem, one. I actually appreciate all that you did. This may have become more complicated if you didn't come. Mirko rolled her eyes. Okay, that's enough mean writing now. One turned to her. Hey Mirko, I'm curious, what was Kimimaro's bone quirk like? I never got to see it, and it sounded interesting in the intel. He could sprout bones from his body. They were tougher than steel and could cut through it like a hot knife through butter. She answered with crossed arms and closed eyes. Is that it? the hero asked, wanting more details. Yes. Man, I wish I could have seen that. Ryukyu smiled pleasantly as she realized something new about him. So you're a quirk nerd. I'd have never guessed one. Well, I guess being quirkless made me want to know as much as I could about them. I like seeing different powers and figuring out how they work along with their properties, the hero answered. So you do study quirks. We thought that about you for a long time. There's a weakness to every quirk along with a way of how it works. Though I don't have one myself, I've always found it interesting to see how others work. Ryukyu gave him a humble smile with these words. You're very interesting, one. Mirko smirked, the dragon realizing what she's known for months. I've been saying that for like 2 months. And that wraps up another heart-racing episode, my incredible time-traveling companions. Part 13 of What If Deku Became Saitama has left us in awe and thirsting for more. I hope you enjoyed this thrilling chapter as much as I did, brimming with action-packed scenes, unexpected twists, and moments that touched our very souls. If you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and join our dynamic community of curious minds. Your support keeps our time-traveling adventures going strong. Now, it's time for you to shine. Drop a comment below and share your thoughts, reactions, and wildest speculations about what's next. I can't wait to dive into some mind-bending discussions with you. And always remember, keep dreaming, keep exploring, and keep being the heroes of your own stories. Until our next adventure, this is Chronos, signing off with an enthusiastic wave and a heartfelt thank you for joining us on this thrilling journey.